Can I have everybody's attention, please? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco. Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Here.
Mayor Crisati.
Here.
Councilor Despard.
Here.
Councilor Finger.
Here.
Councilor Hopkins.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig. Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Pisner.
Here.
Councilor Santinella.
Here.
Councilor Ungary.
Here.
9 members present, 2 absent.
The following notice of public hearing was published in the Hartford Courant Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. Town of Enfield legal notice. The Enfield Town Council hereby schedules a public hearing regarding the proposed repeal of the ordinance prohibiting cannabis establishments to be held on December 6, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. in the Enfield Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, in order to receive public comment. The ordinance is as follows. The prohibition on cannabis establishment pursuant to Bill number 1201, Responsible and Equitable Regulation of Adult Use Act, Section 148. All types of cannabis establishments as defined in said Bill number 1201, Section 1(4), as otherwise be defined by the Connecticut law or regulation to include without limitation all cannabis establishments, producers, dispensary facilities, cultivators, micro-cultivators, retailers, hybrid retailers, food and beverage manufacturers, product packagers, delivery services, or transporters, and other types of licensed cannabis-related businesses, or the conducting of any such activity for commercial purposes by whichever name used are and shall be prohibited within the town of Enfield. This prohibition shall not be construed to affect the medical use of cannabis as expressly authorized by Bill 1201, Section 83, as the same may be amended from time to time. Copies of the ordinance can be obtained in the office of the town clerk or viewed at www.enfieldct.gov. Dated this 22nd day of November 2021, Sheila M. Bailey, Town Clerk. The ground rules for the public hearing. There is no time limit, but I ask that each person not give up too much time so that everyone will have the opportunity to speak. After each person who desires has had one chance to speak, I shall permit those individuals who desire a second chance. After those individuals who desire to speak a second time, I shall permit those individuals who desire a third or fourth, etc. time. Please refrain from personalities, and I am asking the audience to be respectful of everybody's opinions. First person up that is signed up, Lucien Lefebvre.
Lucien Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive. I've just got to do a, where and what is the town looking to allow? Point of sale or micro cultivators or both? Point of sale is easier to accommodate. Micro cultivator needs more space, and indoors is the only option due to weather in our area. Cannabis is an agricultural crop, so more than likely zoning changes would be necessary. Being an agricultural crop, how much tax benefit does this give to town? The 3% tax can only be used for 1, streetscape improvements and other neighborhood developments. 2, educational programs of youth and employment and programs in the municipality. Services for individuals living in a municipality who were released from DOC custody, probation, or parole. Mental health or addiction services. And I ask, are we trying to create more of a need for this service? Youth services bureaus and municipal juvenile review boards. And 6, community civic engagement efforts. And nothing would go into the general fund to lower our taxes. So what do we gain? I've got this from the Journal of Cannabis Research, published 6 August 2021. The study results show that both indoor and outdoor growing is water and nutrient-intensive crop. The high water demand presses the need for water sources and leads to water pollution and diversion, of which could negatively affect the ecosystem. Studies found that cannabis plants emit a significant amount of biogenic, volatile, organic compounds, which could cause indoor air quality issues. Indoor cannabis growing poses a risk of potential health hazards, such as mold exposure, pesticide and chemical exposure. With the temperatures that would be between 75 and 90 degrees and 50 to 70% humidity, and ventilation rates are often lowered to limit emanating odor. The World Health Organization said mold contributes to the upper respiratory tract symptoms. Pesticide use in indoor cultivation is a common practice, putting both the growers and the intervention staff at a considerable risk. Now, the energy demands. Indoor cultivation also has a high energy demand. In Denver, which is one of the first states to pass the recreational cannabis laws, the average electricity used for cultivation and manufacturing increased 36% annually. Now, the carbon footprint for cannabis. 1 kilogram, 2.21 pounds of cannabis processed indoors has CO2 emissions equivalent to 1 passenger car driven for a year at about 12,000 miles. On the next part, the source for this here was the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and it was last reviewed October 19, 2020. On the mental health side, cannabis use, especially frequently, daily or near daily, and in high doses, can cause disorientation and sometimes unpleasant thoughts or feelings of anxiety and paranoia. People who use cannabis are more likely to develop temporary psychosis, not knowing what is real, and hallucinations, paranoia, and long-lasting mental health disorders, including schizophrenia. The association is stronger in people who started using cannabis at an early age and use it frequently. Cannabis use has also been linked to depression, social anxiety, and thoughts of suicide, suicide attempts, and suicide. Is this what we want for Enfield? The tax income will not lower our property taxes, and more than likely, the business will move into an existing structure, more than likely the mall. So to the town council, I'm asking, don't let 1% of the population of Enfield, and that's what we have here tonight, influence your decision. I say put it to a referendum to let the entire town of Enfield decide if this is what we want. And they can put it to when they do the primaries in early 2022. We've got time to look at the consequences, look at the consequences of this decision and to see if there's any advantages to it. There's no need for a quick vote one way or the other. And my feeling is, if it goes to referendum, whatever the town decides, I'm okay with. I'm not totally for or against, but this is some of the research that I've done on it, and I just wanted to put it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Townsend?
Hi, my name is Pam Townsend, 54 Kimberly Drive. The last time I spoke to the town council meeting about this subject, I asked someone to show me the numbers. That this is good for Enfield. So I did some research, And for references, I did some Google searches, read through most of the SB 1201, and read an article in the Hudson Institute titled The Colorado Experiment: Legalized Marijuana's Impact on Colorado, dated June 2021. And here is a summary of what I discovered. Out of 169 communities within Connecticut, 21, depending on how you count them, were considered disproportionately impacted areas, DIAs. And what does this mean? It means that these 21 DIAs have a higher drug and criminal rate in one of their neighborhoods compared to other communities, and those DIAs are first in line to be able to obtain a cannabis license. Sadly, Enfield qualifies. Through the Google searches, I discovered that initially the sale of cannabis does bring in money to the state, which made me wonder, what is the true impact of cannabis sales? I looked at Colorado because it is the first state to permit medical marijuana sales since 2009. The primary justification for legalization was the financial boon for societal needs like drug treatment, reduced black market sales, and money laundering, and to protect our young people. The result, black market and money laundering has exponentially increased in every state that has legalized cannabis sales. The statistics in Colorado for our young people is jaw-dropping. 12-year-old and older has increased 30%. This is a 76% above the national average. For teens, marijuana is the most common drug found in toxicology reports of those who die by suicide, an increase of 28%. For veterans, an increase of 25%. How about the perinatal maternal use, placing offspring at developmental risk? How about safety on the roads? An overall increase of 25% of traffic deaths since legalization in Colorado. However, traffic deaths in which the driver tested positive increased by 135%. Statistics for the workplace were not available, but do you really want someone in a safety-sensitive job using cannabis? In Colorado, positive marijuana lab tests for the workplace are 30% higher than nationwide. Poison Control Center calls have quadrupled. So Enfield, these are the numbers, and not necessarily the ones I was looking for. Now that I provided you with some numbers, I say to you that a public discussion like this one does not give you a true picture about whether or not the citizens of Enfield want any type of cannabis establishment. Not everyone can or are willing to voice their opinion publicly. SB 1201 does allow the municipality to put this out to referendum at least 60 days before a regular election. We have time. This decision does not need to be made today. You can have a moratorium on it, just like so many other Connecticut communities have done. To the citizens of Enfield, we have all heard the first 3 rules for a successful business is location, location, location. I ask you, where do you think the establishment will be located? SB 1201 states the size requirement of the establishment depending on which one is allowed. There are very few locations in Enfield that can meet the requirements. Look it up. The Enfield Square Mall is one of the locations that meet the requirements. Also, growing cannabis is considered an agriculture, just something to think about. So if you think it's all going to end up in Thompsonville and not in your neighborhood, you got another guess coming. I understand that not all people that use marijuana will be addicted, just like not all that drink or gamble will become addicted. I am here to speak for those that have what I call the addiction gene, for lack of a better term. I have personally felt the pain from an alcohol and drug addict. I know the heartbreak, the financial burden, and how it destroys a family. Once the addict has exhausted all of his or her personal finances, he begins to steal, which now is considered a criminal, to support the addiction, goes on state aid, or even panhandles, and we have seen them in Enfield. Now the addict has become a community problem. You may have even called this person a slug, a lowlife, a burden on society, or worse. Many do not understand that the road to recovery is long, painful, and a lifetime commitment. I feel comfortable saying that 98.9% of the people in this room tonight know someone who is an addict or struggles with recovery of addiction, or sadly died from addiction. Addiction is real. It's very, very real. This article that was recently published in the Hartford Courant, based on this article, not one, but 2 fourth graders had access to legal THC edibles. I ask you, how does Enfield, or we, make sure our young people are kept safe? To the town council, I am asking that on this decision and every future decision that you need to make for Enfield, to please take a step back, remove your personal opinions, your politics, and ask yourself, is this really good for Enfield? If you cannot wholeheartedly say yes, you know that gut feeling, we all have it, then you need to vote no. Now that I have shown you the numbers, I will tell you that I am not opposed to medicinal use, but until someone shows me the numbers that this will make Enfield a better community, I do not support any type of cannabis establishment under SB 1201 in Enfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Peabody?
Good evening. Ray Peabody, 370 Washington Road, our fair town. I have a different take than a lot of folks. One, the particular law passed. The comments I hear a lot of comments that are really against the law, and they really need to be addressed to our representatives, either Senator Kissel, Representative Hall, or Representative Arnone. As far as opening up a cannabis store, pot store, whatever you want to call it, I think what we need to do is kind of what Lucian was saying. Take a look at what it takes to make it operational. What are the safety issues? What are the environmental issues? I really don't care about the 3%. Or I just think that we really need to take a look at what's the impact to the community, as with any business that comes in town. I think that my thoughts are, you ought not to make a decision. Shoot, you can overrule the, sorry, brain sprain. You can overrule the regulation that you put in, but I really think the decision whether or not to have this kind of a facility really should go to referendum. That's where you're going to find where people are going to sit there and say, hey, yay or nay. And I can go with that. However, is East Windsor going to do the same thing? Are they going to have a facility? Is Summers, Suffield, our surrounding communities? We already have a number of dispensaries up in Springfield and in Chicopee, all easy drives. And so if you think you're going to keep marijuana use out of the town of Enfield by not having this dispensary, ain't going to happen. It's already here. In terms of our kids, well, I'm a dad. I had 2 boys that went through high school in Enfield. Did very well, thank you. However, I had 2 tests sitting in my medicine cabinet. And if I thought that they were using, guess what they did? And I made damn sure that they were on the straight and narrow. I know kids are going to experiment. I know things are going to happen. But as a parent, I feel it's our responsibility to make sure that these kids are safe. And if your test comes back positive, do something about it. Too many parents don't do anything about it. They don't even understand what's happening. They don't understand and talk to their kids, or better yet, listen to their kids or what they're doing. Observe who their friends are. Observe what they're doing. You got to do that. Parents got to get engaged. And when I was on the board, I found out the complaints I got on the Board of Education. I found out the primary complaints I got were from parents who are not engaged. So it's up to us as parents to ensure that our kids are not doing things they ought not to be doing. So again, I would turn over the regulation and have a referendum. That would be my counsel to all of you. Let the folks of Enfield decide what they want. That way there, the pressure's not on you guys. It's on us, the voters, to decide. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time, and glad to see you all here. Have a good night.
Thank you. Juliet Leith?
Juliet Leith, 3 Catherine Road. After hearing pro and con opinions expressed about the sale of recreational marijuana in Enfield to the previous town council, with that council voting down such sales, I have decided to express my opinion about marijuana sales in Enfield to you, our newly elected town council. That alcohol is sold legally is often used as a positive argument for selling recreational drugs, its consumption being advertised as the way to enjoy life. In my opinion, that argument is misleading and wrong. There is voluminous research that outlines statistically that drinking alcohol detrimentally affects the drinker. Liquor stores were deemed essential in almost every state during the COVID pandemic, where the possibilities of more suicides, spousal and child abuse situations, excessive hospitalizations because of delirium tremens, and severe depression situations due to alcohol addiction, a deciding factor to calling liquor stores essential. Alcoholism is a real and serious addiction. In my opinion, the fact of legal alcohol sales in Enfield is not a positive argument for selling legal marijuana in Enfield. There are many documented detriments of legal marijuana use. Please take note that I am not speaking against prescribed marijuana use for medical reasons. Recreational marijuana risks include brain health risks, babies' health and development risks, including detriment from the toxic secondhand fumes, which are also toxic to other bystanders, mental health problems, driving difficulties, including the detrimental outcomes of car accidents, relationship problems, poor educational outcomes, reduced life satisfaction, and addiction. In my opinion, even though our state has legalized its sale, deciding not to sell marijuana in Enfield makes a statement about wanting a better quality of life here. Clouding life's problems by using recreational drugs will not solve, but only add to those problems by adding the possibility of addiction. There is no solution for the inner longing in our souls by altering our reality through any drug. Most importantly, our children are observing how we behave and how we deal with our life situations. Do we exhibit love, hope, faith, and courage in addressing the inevitable difficulties of life? Or do we alter our brains with recreational drugs in order not to have to face them? Alcohol and marijuana are addicting substances, and there is no joy or peace or solution in addiction. The good news is that there is an effective and proven solution to our soul search for joy and peace in life without drugs. We can bring this good news to others as they watch us walk in it. The good news solution is that God's word to us will never fail, Luke 37, that in everything God works for the good of those who love him, Romans 8:28, that God has left his peace with us and his peace satisfies the gaping hole this world can't satisfy, John 14:27, that God will give joy and peace to those who trust in him, Romans 15:13, and that we have a hope and a future because God so loved us that he gave to us his Son, Jesus Christ, as Savior to all who accept a new life in Christ. Jeremiah 29 and John 3:16. In my opinion, we don't need to sell marijuana in Enfield. We need to live and share the gospel, God's good news.
Thank you. Mrs. Burney from 50 Long Hollow Road.
It's B-E-R-R-Y, Berry. Berry.
Mrs. Berry, okay.
It's my humble opinion, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Lee. I wholeheartedly agree with what she just said. And in the last meeting, someone said this is not a moral issue. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. Everything that was on my mind that I wanted to express, Miss Lee did an excellent job for me. So I just would like to say, yes, we do not need to sell marijuana. We have the medical profession that will administer it to all the patients who need it. And I just would just like to reiterate, we do not need to sell marijuana in Enfield.
Mr. Charles Harris.
Yeah, I figured that. Good evening, Charles Harris, at number 5 O'Hare Avenue. I don't come with any publications or anything written down. The only thing I have is my own experiences. I've seen people on shipboard while I was serving the Coast Guard that would sneak off to different places just so they could, light up and smoke. Sometimes they would wreck the machinery or sensitive equipment such as gyroscopes for the ship, which took time to repair. After I was in service 10 years, I came to Enfield and I took up school and position for machining. And I saw plenty of people were lunchtime, they were sneaking off, smoking, or other things, but mostly smoking. Boss would catch them, send them home for the day. But some of these machines do some damage, both to the people around them and to them, their operators. So, and these were adults, if you want to call them adults, 20s, 30s, some of them. So it doesn't make any difference what age. You can't say, oh, just kids. No, some of these adults are not responsible either. So I don't think that our town is large enough to have dispensaries or growing facilities. I think we're just looking for trouble, and I'm sure the chief would tell you that until they get some way of telling if somebody's been smoking, law enforcement's just, they don't know what to do right now. So that's all I had to say, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Connie Boyajian.
Connie Boyajian, 165 Sherman Road. I agree with everyone who has spoken. Healthy minds and drugs don't mix. And I'm thinking of school children. If adults have the drugs, the kids will have the drugs. It's there. I was a school teacher a long time ago at Kosciuszko. And I know all about it, and I've seen it happen. And healthy minds and drugs don't mix. Drugs are like poison candy. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie Harrison?
Good evening. I typed out what I wanted to say because I am going to be nervous and I don't want to forget the points that I hope to make. Oh, 3 Crestwood Drive. Sorry. I don't want to forget the points that I hope to make regarding overturning the ban of having a dispensary in Enfield. First, I will admit that I don't know enough details about the financial aspects of the revenue this town would benefit from if there were a dispensary in Enfield. I do see how much Massachusetts has benefited, and from what I've educated myself on, I only see the positives more than any negatives as far as how Enfield would benefit financially. The previous arguments against a marijuana dispensary ranged from not having enough trained police officers that have experience with marijuana intoxication. Why not train more? Marijuana isn't going away just because there's no dispensary here. Why haven't law enforcement have had this training prior to the legalization of marijuana? People have been driving while using marijuana in this town for a very long time, yet only 2 officers are trained to identify marijuana intoxication. Bringing undesirable people into the community was also brought up. Are the people of Enfield that currently purchase marijuana in Massachusetts all undesirable people? Am I undesirable because I use marijuana? Many other reasons were cited. Those are just a couple that stuck out for me. I am prescribed medical marijuana for cancer, but I've also gone to Massachusetts before I was prescribed it and purchased recreational marijuana for the chronic nausea caused by chemotherapy. It is cheaper than the $800 a month prescribed medication for nausea, which comes with GI side effects, unlike marijuana. When I go to the dispensary, I see people with PTSD, chronic pain, MS, and many other illnesses who find marijuana very helpful. Recreational marijuana is never going to go away, whether you can buy it legally at a local dispensary or if you have to get it off the street. How many people have overdosed on marijuana? None. It's not a gateway drug. It's medicine from the earth. Even for recreational users, the high is nowhere near that of opiates. I know this from my own experience. How many people have died or survived an overdose from purchasing illegal opiates and or heroin in Enfield this year? I ask that you do your research, have an open mind about the medical benefits, which are real. As far as recreational use, I have to say that it's to this town's advantage financially now that it's legal. If people can't get their weed in Enfield, they will go to Mass or keep buying off the streets, which has been going on for decades. Has crime from marijuana use increased? Because I see more about heroin overdoses in Enfield on social media than rises in marijuana-related crimes, not to include the sale of marijuana before legalization. Thank you for allowing me to share my feelings. I look forward to fresh ears, listening to the people of Enfield, I believe a vast majority would like to have this ban overturned. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please remind everybody that's in the audience that when somebody's has the floor, if we could keep it silent, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Frank Alimo.
Frank Alimo, 9 Valley View Circle, Enfield. For the record, I'm sitting member of the Enfield Planning and Zoning and a past candidate in the town council race against my friend, Mr. Matt Despard here. So I want to go in the direction of the referendum relative to this. Because during the campaign, I got to tell you, a handful of people in District 3, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the community, maybe a handful were upset that, the cannabis vote was taken by the previous council. And a lot of people told me I lost because of marijuana. Even people on my side of the aisle. And I 100% disagree with that. I'll never believe that for a minute. I ran a good race. Matt ran a good race. I know I walked more than him because he was on vacation for a couple of weeks, but still, I know I outwalked him. Anyway, so what happens if we do a referendum? It's going to do a few things for us. If it's approved, we'll be able to look at the demographics of the referendum to see which districts throughout the community were more positive or more negative. So that can give us a possible indication on where it's going to go. And that brings me to another subject, further on with the referendum. And now why I mentioned being on planning and zoning. As some of you may or may not know, maybe some of the new members don't know this yet, but currently we're redoing our POCD, our Plan of Conservation and Development. That is required every 10 years to be done by the state of Connecticut. We're also rewriting all of our planning regulations and documents relative to planning and zoning. So that is currently going on. So this referendum, if you decide to do that, could help us, in that area. So at our last meeting, the director of planning, advised us to get ready because, the council is probably going to overturn the referendum or the marijuana ban, to get ready because guess what? We have to figure out on the planning and zoning side, where this thing's going, where are we going to allow it, what part of town's it going to be in. So with that said, and like I was saying before, everything that's going on the planning front right now with the PLCD and, the development of the new codes, it could be helpful for you. I mean, who wants it in their backyard? That thing. So me losing on the marijuana, I don't believe that for a minute. I believe I lost more votes on the new building going up out in Hazardville, the new warehouse across from Fermi. Those people were upset, rightly so. They were upset. But guess what? Poor planning. That was zoned commercial for years. Nobody took care of it. Nobody did anything. That building doesn't belong there. But I voted in favor of it because it was a right vote. It was a legal vote. And if we didn't vote no, the town would have got sued. So we voted. But where I'm going with this is if we take all of this information and we put it in the kettle, we may be able to find out, first, the people want marijuana. And now, how do we do it? Where do we put it? What zone is it going in? Where do we plug it into the PLCD? Where do we plug it into our planning and development? Somebody mentioned the mall. We don't want it there because we want a Class A mall. Right now, I don't even know if we got a Class C mall. I don't know what the heck's going on. But we don't want that there because the high-end stores aren't going to want something like that around. So I think the referendum will give us all a bunch of tools. We could all take a breath. I know it's been very emotional, and I respect everybody's opinions on the whole thing. But something to think about. I mean, And I think other people, we're thinking about that tonight too. But think about the other pieces of this now. It's going to go before planning and zoning. And you guys, on another note, as you know, you guys will be appointing new members to planning and zoning. The faces on planning and zoning will be changing. Not my face. I have 2 more years left. Thank you. But, but there's going to be new members coming up on planning and zoning, appointed and approved by the council. You guys have to put these people up there. Now, you're just going to throw this marijuana thing at everybody? When, even the sitting members right now, we don't even know what we're going to do with it. So you got to be conscious of that. You're going to have people applying for these positions on planning and zoning that I think in the next, 6 weeks maybe, Mr. Mayor, I think in January, there's going to be some new faces. And planning and zoning gets pretty technical, so you got to get up to speed on it. So that's another point that we may just want to all just take a breath. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you. Tracy Jarvis.
Hello, Tracy Jarvis, 206 North Maple Street. I'm here in support of prohibiting cannabis establishments in our town, and I'm here because I feel very strongly about marijuana and the negative effects it has on specific individuals. I myself am a victim of the devastating effects marijuana can have on people. I had very little stability growing up with my 4 siblings as my single mother had marijuana-induced psychosis. She was not doing other drugs. She was not drinking. She was simply smoking pot every day to escape from her overwhelming responsibilities. As children, we were consistently subject to ridiculous fantasies, embarrassing behaviors, and we often lacked life's essentials. Her psychosis led to long interruptions in school as we had to be sent with relatives while she was hospitalized. I'm not throwing my mom under the bus. I love my mom. But I wish this story was unique. However, I shared with the council previously that I have 4 family members who suffer from marijuana-induced psychosis. I have a niece who uses marijuana regularly, medicinally. She's been in and out of psychiatric facilities for the last 6 years. My heart is broken watching the devastating long-term effects this has on her and her parents. If you choose to smoke marijuana and you benefit from it, you're lucky. I don't judge you. I could only wish this was the experience for my family. If that was the case, I probably wouldn't even be here today. But it's not the case for my family. And it's not the case for many. We simply don't hear the statistics. I've heard many people say that it's no different than alcohol, and I strongly disagree. A person can drink 4 alcoholic beverages every day for the rest of their life and still maintain their sanity. Maybe not their liver, but their sanity. That's simply not the case with marijuana. We, meaning the town of Enfield, have signs all over that encourage parents to have the pot talk and to teach them the lows of getting high. And I can think of many lows. By permitting these dispensaries in our town, we're communicating that there is no longer any low in getting high. So I believe we have an obligation to protect our community and to protect our children for the negative effects we don't even know we will bring by permitting this in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Norris.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on? First, I want to say happy holidays to everybody. And congratulations on your recent victories in the election. My name is Tim Norris. I live at 1200 Enfield Street. I'm 100% for Enfield having a dispensary and a grow. I feel the decision to ban a dispensary and a grow was not an informed decision. The town citizens have not heard from a CEO, a CFO, or a compliance officer in the industry when that vote was taken and still haven't. I have many relatives and friends involved in the industry. The cannabis industry is the most highly regulated industry in the country. Between all the compliance and reporting measures, the HCAs, the security personnel, the cameras, certification of employees, the support of other local businesses attributed to dispensaries, jobs, which are high-paying jobs, the improvement of buildings, community outreach from the cannabis industry, which supports other businesses as well. The tax dollars, another huge bonus. Lee, Mass., for example, in the first year received over $1 million in tax revenue. Marijuana is already in our community. You could start from Route 5 and work your way down and go to every single convenience store, and you will see drug paraphernalia in it. You can drive around town and see CBDs. You can see products endorsed by famous people. The median age of a cannabis user is 48. I heard an issue about energy brought up. Well, energy consumption in an HCA, you can actually have the grow use solar, for example. And HCA is a host community agreement for anybody that doesn't know that. What else did I write down? Marijuana growth is not used, it's an organic growth. There's no chemicals. IDs are checked when you arrive at the facility. You're not even allowed inside without showing your ID, and it gets scanned. It knows that if you've been at another cannabis location or not. And then it gets checked a second time when you get to the register. So there aren't going to be any under 21-year-olds going in. Now, if you're going to be a bad adult and not protect your things that should only be used by people over the age of 21, like alcohol, which I guarantee you is in most people's homes and not monitored, not labeled like cannabis products are. That's on the parent themselves. That's not on a child. Law enforcement does get training in marijuana. I know, I was a cop. We did a controlled burn at the police academy. So we would know the smell of marijuana and its effects. But on top of that, in an HCA, for example, you can pay for the chief's police officers to be trained with an HCA, and the company would pay for it. So you don't have to worry about officers not being trained in it because it's already training. You're already trained in it, and then we could literally, the HCA would provide for officers to get further training. I think I think it's great that the public's coming out. But let's be honest, we wouldn't have been here had we had an informed vote to begin with. If we had gotten a CFO and a CEO and a compliance officer, now I've worked in U.S. Customs my entire life. I grew up there. This industry has more oversight than that. And we literally hold on to paperwork for 7 years so Customs can come in and do an intensive and go, is everything okay? Let me go, I'm going to pour through every single one of these customers' imports. The compliance is greater than that. It's the most overseen industry in this country. I can't stress that enough. You can walk in just about any store in town here, whether it's a convenience store, a package store, a grocery store, and you can buy liquor. I don't hear anybody up here saying, let's take away all the liquor licenses here in town. We literally employ children to work in the tobacco fields. I don't see anybody taking down the stores that sell tobacco. It makes absolutely zero sense. Not the worries. But for example, you have people that come up and will mention maybe some bad things that have happened in their lives because of addiction. I could sit here and mention I've got at least 4 family members that suffer from PTSD that benefit from marijuana. I've got 9 friends in wheelchairs that benefit from marijuana, and they all work. Could things be abused? Sure. Guns can be abused. Alcohol can be abused. Liquor, right? Cigarettes can be abused. That's not what we're talking about here. You're talking about allowing an industry to be here that is already here. If you don't walk into the stores and you don't see all these products already, I feel bad for you. It's already here. This is going to give you control with an HCA, and you can put in there anything you want. If there's a store here in town that makes shirts, you can make the cannabis company buy the shirts from that store. So now that store starts to benefit. Whether you own a company that, say you have water bottles and you want to put the company name on it, if that exists here in the town, that can be in an HCA as well. You pretty much can control whatever goes on. The people that work in these industries are constantly recertified and background checks done. I can go get a job in a package store and never get a background check done. So I understand the concerns that everybody has, but marijuana isn't this evil devil that we've been told about since we were children. It simply isn't. And on top of that, in an HCA, for example, let's say you were worried about children getting into, say, like a family member that I have that actually chews edibles to go to sleep at night so he's not reminded of all of the killing he had to do over in the Middle East. You can actually in the HCA, make it so that the cannabis retailer has to sell whatever edibles in an actual child-proof package. So that's my take on that. I wish you all a happy holiday.
Chris Marcotte.
As the mayor said, I think everyone's just focusing on the store aspect of this. Like the mayor said, there's other businesses. There's hybrid retailer, cultivator, indoors, micro cultivator, product manufacturer, food and beverage manufacturer, product packer, delivery service, transporter. All the permits are licensed through the state and the town. All plants are strictly monitored from seed to sale. So wherever the seed is processed, it follows it all the way to where it's sold in a store, who buys it. It's very regulated from where the seed is germinated. Every aspect of the business are state and locally inspected. Every employee is thoroughly vetted and licensed through the state. Some financials, Massachusetts, who just did the rec a few years ago, they've created 13,000 full-time jobs. Sales in 2018 were $156 million, 2019 $404 million, and 2020 was $700 million. As you see, it's progressively getting stronger. It's going to be over $1 billion within a couple of years. In the 37 states that have allowed recreational marijuana, they've created 321,000 full-time jobs. Taxes with every purchase include state sales tax, town excise tax, cultivation tax. Depending on the town, the states have been is distributed through anti-drug programs, environmental programs, public safety, hiring more police officers, state police officers, public schools, and law enforcement. The potential of a tax revenue for the state through Forbes magazine is roughly $97,696,000 the first year. To look at allowing a recreational business in Enfield isn't just having a dispensary. There are many different aspects of allowing the production of marijuana that would create jobs and let entrepreneurs create businesses. Micro-cultivation, for instance, would only be allowed in a state inspection, secure indoor location with many different security measures. Packaging facilities and transportation also state regulated and inspected. There are many secure small businesses that will develop through the legalization of marijuana for entrepreneurs. If towns allow for these small businesses to open, it will benefit numerous different ways, from the state equality program, local taxes collected, funding state, local police, anti-drug programs, and job creations. There's more to this than just opening up a dispensary. We need to do this before corporate America moves in. Give the small guys a shot for once. That's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. George Young.
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. Good evening. The source of some of my comments tonight in support of allowing a retail cannabis business in Enfield are mostly excerpt from the Northern Financial Consulting Group information on September 23rd, 2021, the Webster Dictionary, and the Hartford Business Journal on November 15th, 2021. Why would we want a legal cannabis business in Enfield? About 4 years ago, I came to the council meeting and mentioned that the cannabis industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the U.S. It is now estimated that overall retail sales could rise between $25 billion and $30 billion annually by 2023, a nearly threefold increase from estimated annual sales in 2019. That's billion with a B. Let's start with safety. When people buy off the street, there have been numerous instances where they get drugs that have been laced with fentanyl. This is a synthetic opioid that is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. The purchasers of heroin don't know that they're purchasing fentanyl, which often results in overdose deaths. When buying for medicinal purposes or recreational use from legal dispensary, these situations are unlikely to happen. Isn't the safety of everyone important? In addition, people would be traveling locally, thereby reducing their highway travel to other towns and states to acquire the product. The recreational marijuana is sold to adults, maybe 18 to 21, and older. In the November 15th article in the Hartford Business Journal, there was a young woman who wants to start a retail marijuana business named Lady Jane. She wants to launch it as a luxury destination in downtown Hartford for adult use cannabis. She's looking to raise $500,000 by early 2022. Downtown Hartford makes sense because the city's Planning and Zoning Commission recently created a draft zoning matrix that would allow retail sales in the center of the city. Why is this a good business at this time? The marijuana industry is growing exponentially every year, as I previously mentioned. It is attracting more people to the market, which means there's room for many dispensaries to do well, in spite of competition from larger businesses. Any cannabis dispensary would need a good business plan to succeed. Even a smaller dispensary serving the adult population will need a team to operate successfully. Depending on the site of the operation, the annual employee payroll could cost about $250,000 or more a year. Would that not be good for employment for Enfield? The business will need advertising budgets, financial and legal assistance to survive. Since cannabis is still technically federally illegal in the U.S., many banks will still refuse to work with dispensaries. However, it is possible to work with credit unions and private marijuana banks in some regions. Medical and recreational marijuana cannabis dispensaries usually operate with an average net profit of between 15 and 21% after accounting for taxes. As stated in one of the articles, the percentage varies in accordance with state and local regulations. Credit unions are overseen by NCUA, which is the National Credit Union Administration, which released guidance in 2019, allowing the industry to provide services and even lend to the legally operating cannabis companies. I'm glad the present council is rewriting and revisiting the issue before them, even though I believe the town should be deciding this in the form of a referendum. Maybe you could use some TIF money and get a business into the former Macy's. It has available parking and space to operate. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Kelly Hetmiller.
Kelly Hemmler, 10 Hartford Ave. There's no real benefit to allowing recreational marijuana sales in Enfield. The state designates how the tax revenue can be spent. It cannot be used to lower resident property taxes, and it cannot be used to pay down the debt. Anyone who tells you it can be used for that should read the bill. The money can be used for addiction programs and youth programs. I see it as creating dependency on both sides. An addictive drug that destroys families is sold for recreational purposes, and then the tax money from the sale is sent off to organizations to fight that dependency. It's a never-ending loop, and something that government legislators need to be looking at and to avoid that. I've heard some say that it'll save Enfield's economy, that it'll create jobs, that it would be but it would only be one dispensary, so jobs would be a small number, probably at minimum wage. Since recreational marijuana is illegal by federal government, the potential owner would not be able to procure any loans by the federal banks. I'm sorry. And would basically be a cash business. I read an article of a potential owner who was not even eligible to get help from the Small Business Association's business mentoring program called SCORE because the business was federally illegal. Big corporations will dominate the recreational marijuana business in Connecticut. There is a big corporation who's already purchased most of the medical marijuana dispensaries in Connecticut in preparation for legal sales next year. This means local profits will only benefit big corporate shareholders and not reinvest into Enfield's economy. The biggest issue with recreational marijuana is our youth. Yes, the state made the short-sighted, terrible decision to legalize it, but selling it in our towns sends the clear message to our youth that it's okay. Saying that recreational marijuana is only for adults is not good enough. If it was, there wouldn't be a problem with underage drinking and smoking. Please understand, I'm not being the fun police. I am not trying to stop you from doing something. What I'm trying to do is to stop you from doing something that will change Enfield forever. Once an approved vendor and they set up shop in Enfield, there's no going back. There's no room for regrets. There will be no mechanism to correct it. In Massachusetts, most towns actually chose to take a pause and to see how it worked for the other towns before they had taken that leap. The Connecticut bill is different, so you can't even look at Massachusetts and make that decision. The Connecticut bill is actually geared more toward cities than it is for towns. So I'm asking you to please look out for all the implications. You have the power tonight to vote no and to give it a pause. Otherwise, there's going to be no going back. Thank you.
Jeffrey Scott.
Hi, Jeffrey Scott, 17 Connecticut Ave. Last time I spoke, a lot of you folks weren't here. Congratulations on winning your new seats. At that meeting, there was a lot of discussion against what was going on with the council, and lo and behold, a lot of emphasis on having a referendum. Now the pendulum swings. Now the people who don't want you to do what you're planning on doing have a referendum. I said at that meeting, if the council did not allow a referendum, there would be one in November regardless. And there was. I'm all in favor of y'all turning around what happened and looking at a lot of what's been said here tonight. But a lot of what I'm hearing is a relitigation of what has already happened at our state capitol. The state of Connecticut said this is a legal business. The only legal business I've ever heard of anybody trying to keep out of the town. And I get all the stories of people in their personal situations and why they may think that this is going to somehow make Enfield more pristine by not allowing this to happen. But I'll tell you, folks, it's been happening for a long time. And when I hear about the people saying, oh, well, you know, marijuana leads to other drugs. But you know what? Marijuana stores sell one thing, marijuana. And it's pure. It's all specified, exactly what's in it. And by the way, those containers are hard for an adult to open. Believe me. Or so I was told. So yeah, I'm all in favor of, hey, you don't have to make a decision tonight like other council had and said, well, we're going to disregard what we heard here tonight. We're just going to do what we want to do anyway, because I don't think you're that kind of folks. You want to put it out to a referendum? I think that would be fine. I don't know how many, I know some of you do follow the Enfield Forum. There was an informal poll on that forum. It must be that the people who are in favor of the ban either aren't on the forum or they don't vote. Okay? But I would encourage you to, I know you've been very thoughtful about this, and I know that, as one gentleman said, he was told that marijuana cost him his seat on the council. Well, that could be. That could be. But I think it's very important to take a step back and look at it, and don't be the rubber stamp people that we had here before. Okay? And I thank you, and happy holidays to all of you.
Robert Marshall.
Hi there. Robert Marshall, 17 Silver Lane. First time actually ever coming to a town council meeting, and I've lived in town for 15 years. So it was something I actually felt very strongly enough to come out tonight. I'm in a lot of pain tonight, so just bear with me. I actually took the time to go up to Northampton and talk to people who work at the dispensaries up there. And I was really surprised to pull up and find a police officer out front the first time I went there. And I thought, oh boy, are they snagging people coming over the state line? What are they doing there? So I asked the people in the store, why? And they explained it was for their safety and the public's safety. And I said, well, are the cops writing down license plate numbers? Are they trying to, figure out what's going on? And he said, no, that the majority of the people, the majority of the police officers up there, and I can't speak for our own Enfield Police Department, were able to then distinguish legal marijuana sales versus seeing street sales that are out on the street that aren't marijuana, that are more addictive drugs that are a problem, that do lead to more problems than marijuana. Sorry, I took notes. Addicts will get their drugs wherever they can. They'll go right up to Springfield. So if they want it, they're going to leave Enfield and they're going to go up to Springfield if they have an addiction problem. People who have an addiction are addicted to several different things, as we've heard. Alcohol, food, you can buy both of those in town. I obviously have a food addiction, okay? I can go to Friendly's and get some ice cream if I want to, and that's legal here in town. If I'm a smoker, I can go buy cigarettes. I can buy alcohol. As far as places that grow marijuana and not wanting those in town, we have drug warehouses in town. I believe there was a big drug warehouse heist here a couple of years ago, if I'm not wrong. So drug warehouses and drug distribution centers are already in town as far as being a legal thing. So why would we discriminate against an additional revenue stream here in town? As far as the effects on children, people need to be more responsible with their children's actions all around. People need to be responsible for their children. It isn't the town council or law enforcement. It really starts in the home. I'm sorry. For people who have addiction issues and will need more services, as we've heard, well, they're gonna have those addiction issues whether they go to East Windsor, Hartford, or wherever else to buy the drugs. We're still going to be funding those addiction issues. At least now we'll have a revenue stream because we'll have a dispensary in town. I also, and I may be speaking out of turn, I believe those that have a medical card, because I've heard a lot on medical marijuana here tonight, they cannot, I believe that they cannot have a pistol permit as well. So now you have to make a decision whether you're going to have a medical marijuana card or whether you're going to have the right to bear arms. I don't believe we need a referendum on this. I think Enfield, the voters in Enfield spoke loud and clear in November. We have a whole new cast of people up here, and I think that people want to see more economic development in town, less spending on stupid things that not everybody benefits from, to be quite honest. As far as it relates to the mall, I heard earlier, no high-end stores are coming back to Enfield. I hate to tell you that. Macy's is gone. People are shopping online. They bulldoze the mall. It's done, okay? There's nothing coming back there. And honestly, I own a business. A year ago, I called our economic development office to move my business here to Enfield. I'm still waiting for a return phone call. Okay, so I don't believe that we're going to pull in any more economic development from that, to be quite honest. And the last thing is street drugs, which people will still go out and get, as we've heard, are more potent, they can be laced with things, where this is a legal drug that people, it's obviously regulated and they're not going to get sick from it. People aren't going up to the pot shop in Northampton and getting shot, where they're going to, other sections of town or wherever and getting shot because of drug trade. So thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it very much.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations on your wins. I'm going to come at this from a different angle, okay? Some of you know me from the campaign. Teresa Meyer, 18 Thomas Street. I grew up here in Enfield. I also graduated from Fermi. I came back to Connecticut in 2011 to take care of my dad, who was dying of cancer. I came back to Enfield in 2013, and I transformed my business, which I opened in 1999, into a full-time business in 2015. I do accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, QuickBooks consulting, and training. So part of that is helping people determine where their life choices are guiding them and taking them in their business, in their life. And a lot of these come down to three main things: how to save, spend, and invest. Their money, their time, their priorities. Okay? So I do nice little presentations on that in more detail. But we're all presented with choices in life. Okay, most of the time these choices only affect us and our immediate people and persons. You are in a unique position to make choices for the town and the community at large. And so that gives you more responsibility to listen to all aspects of the situations in front of you. Now, a lot has been said regarding the 3% profit and bringing more businesses to town. And I'm all for businesses. Businesses are what puts a roof over my head and pays my bills. So I like businesses. I want more businesses to come to town. But there is this fundamental problem with the marijuana business. There is a difference. There's a separation of the federal law and the state law. Federally, this is still considered illegal, even though the state is saying, no, this is legal. So that means that the businesses can't do business. Yeah. Thank you, Doug. That means that these businesses are mostly cash businesses, unless they're doing business with the credit unions and credit card companies. Okay? Cash flush businesses create more tax audits. They create more problems with security. Okay? Police, there needs to be a greater police what's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm looking for. The presence. There we go. A greater police presence. There's a greater cost. Okay, so when I'm talking my businesses and my customers, my clients, I'm looking to help them decide on how they're going to improve their businesses, providing them a cost-benefit analysis. Okay, and cost is a concern, not just the economic cost, but we're talking about the social cost, and we're talking about, yes, the moral cost. Okay, 20 years ago, you watched TV and compare it to now. What used to be considered softcore porn is now primetime TV. Okay, you got TV shows with children having sex, with pedophiles being accepted. Okay, so the idea that we should play follow the leader and just go along for the ride because everybody else is doing it doesn't necessarily provide the best choice for the environment that we want to create for our kids and how we want them to grow up, really. It'd be nice to think that all parents are responsible, all adults are responsible, all teenagers listen to their parents and do as they're told, and all children aren't going to touch things that they shouldn't. That's not the case. That is not the case. The one-size-fits-all approach to life does not exist. It is a fairy tale. And that needs to be taken into consideration when you're making a choice that is not only going to affect you as individuals, but as all of us as a community. Okay? Now, there are other facilities down the road, okay, over in Springfield and other towns, and that's great. That means it's accessible to everybody. It just doesn't need to be here. Okay? The fair way to go about this would be to put it up for a referendum, would be to put the brakes on and just put it up for referendum. Now, I didn't come to speak the first time this came up into existence here. So I'm voicing my opinion now to try and get you guys to consider not just the short term, but the long-term effects. Because we can be blinded by money, okay? And the money is always going to be a nice enticement for people, okay? But that's only one part of the puzzle. That's only one part of the picture. You have to look at the entire picture in order to make a proper choice, not only for yourselves, but for our town and for our community. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. You guys have a great holiday.
Thank you. Margaret Perry.
Margaret Perry.
You want, yeah.
Margaret Perry, 281 Washington Road, Enfield. You all know how I feel about this. I am a user, both medically and socially. Regarding the cans that the gummies come in, I can't open them. I have to have my husband open them, so they are childproof. Me having a half a gummy at the end of the day is no different than having a glass of wine. Regarding how much money it will save or put into the community, all those programs that you talked about, all those programs that it would help fund, would be things that we would not have to put into our budget, or the dollar figure would not have to be as high. So yes, in fact, you are saving money. And as far as, again, children getting into them, for God's sakes, there's ads on TV for your Tide Pods, all right? So everything has to be kept out of the hands of children. And the other thing that I cannot believe no one has been brought up, which leads me to believe very few people here have been to one of these shops, is how expensive they are. You are not going to have a child go in or a teenager go in and be able to buy anything for under $55 or $50 or $30, and it's very little. That stuff is not going to end up on the street. And honestly, if I had a child at home, well, I do, but he's more than a child. If I had a child at home, I would prefer them to take something from one of the shops versus what they get off of the street. It's sort of like you don't want to buy bathtub gin. Well, you don't want to buy the stuff that's on the street. I do believe, though, it should go for a vote. Coming here and talking about it, you have those who do, those who don't. It's not a big picture. So whatever you decide, I wish you luck, and I wish you all a very happy holiday.
Thank you. Chris D'Antonio.
Hi there, Chris D'Antonio, 18 Montana Road. I'd like to speak in support of the council's proposal to rescind the hasty and unnecessarily restrictive ordinance banning all cannabis establishments in town. That move was not supported by public sentiment, evident by public testimony, polls, and I think as mentioned here, possibly even the recent election as well. The state law that legalized the sale of recreational marijuana provided a clear measure for minority opposition to gather signatures to petition for a ballot measure. The time frame for that ballot measure had passed for this year's election with no petition on hand, indicating that Enfield residents aren't particularly unique in a nation of growing support for cannabis, recognition of the failed war on drugs and prohibition, or at the very least, just a tolerance or indifference to what people consume in their own homes. I get that not everybody likes cannabis, and that's okay. We don't have to like everything that's generally accepted by society, and we can balance reasonable concern with reasonable rules. As an example for this case, right? If we have a concern for visibility to children, we can address that with good zoning regulation to keep high visibility establishments away from schools. It's a pretty normal measure for handling, prohibited underage items like alcohol and cannabis. But a supposed concern for children does not need to be an all-out ban for all types of businesses that happen to deal with the substance that one's morally opposed to. As such, repealing this ordinance is a clear base measure, which I fully support, and I think there's a lot of other support for it as well. I don't know about you, but I'd love to be able to bike to a local shop in town and maybe even buy locally grown cannabis and support our local entrepreneurs and economy. Sure, we can all drive 10 minutes down the street, if you have a car readily accessible. by all means, but why let Massachusetts have it? Why let other towns have it? Why not let our residents have a choice? And, that's presuming that these businesses even want to come to Enfield. So let's not put the cart before the horse. And again, this applies to cannabis, alcohol, groceries, hardware, everything in between, right? Let's try to support our local economy, our local employers, our local employees. Keep business in town. Let's not drive them out. Thank you for your time.
Kathleen Sarno.
Kathleen Sarno, 102 North Maple Street, Unit 6B, Enfield, Connecticut. Good evening and congratulations. So I'm here to speak for the sales and/or distribution of marijuana. I have a couple of notes, so I'm just going to just read them. I know something was brought up about possibly making, having to make zone changes to put in any kind of buildings to, grow pot or sell it. Well, unless things have changed, I know that our industrial zoning is the same as agricultural. So if there's anything in an industrial zone, you should be able to put in marijuana sales if it's considered agricultural. And I mean, hell, it can go into the Win Stanley building if you want it to. So it's certainly big enough and it could go there for the zoning. So I know the smell and some of the, the toxins or whatever that come from the plants. I thought plants gave off oxygen, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm definitely for medical marijuana. I know plenty of people that do use it for plenty of reasons, mainly cancer, and I am definitely for that. I don't think by opening up a medical dispensary or sales of marijuana in Enfield is going to make a difference for the kids. I mean, they're going to get it one way or another, and personally, I'd rather see them get it from a dispensary at this point, because now that it is legal, everybody's going to be growing it, and they're going to be putting things in it to make it grow faster and make it be stronger and just to get it out on the street. And probably, yes, cheaper than what the dispensary does charge. But at least it's not going to be tainted with anything. So I would be more concerned with the kids buying it from the streets than from legal sales. I know Colorado was mentioned a lot. We are not Colorado, not far from it. So I don't even know what that has to do with anything. I know you have a big decision to make tonight. I don't think that, I'm glad you overturned it and are now open-minded and looking at it again like it should have been in the first place. But even if you put it to referendum, I'd say either referendum or vote yes for the sales one way or the other. But I'm definitely for sales. I know that planning and zoning matters were mentioned here earlier, and that should not be. And, if they're talking about regulations, they're putting the cart before the horse before the cart, or whatever the saying is, because we don't even know if businesses want to come into town, so regulations aren't going to matter if they don't come here. I truly am sorry for the families, including my own, who've experienced loss from drugs, but I assure you it was not from marijuana. I can't speak for the other families. Even my art teacher from 1973, Mrs. Boyajian, was here speaking. She even knows the score. So, I mean, this woman's got to be, I graduated in 1976, so I'm thinking Mrs. Boyajian is in her 80s. So, God bless her. It's here already. People are making money from the pot. East Windsor's going to do it. Springfield's doing it. South Windsor has a medical dispensary that has a line around it to get in. They're probably even going to go for something bigger. They certainly need to. As far as security, any dispensary that I've been in, and I have visited them, there is plenty of security there, so there's no way that it's just there. So I didn't feel unsafe. I never felt that anybody was going to come in and rob it or steal or do anything. So, and there's just so many jobs to be had from this in so many areas of this new thing. I mean, now they're looking at actually delivery for pot, I mean, so the drivers are going to have to buy their own stash, but will be able to go and deliver it to you. You call them up and say, I can't sleep, I need something, they'll come and deliver it to your house. So lots of changes going on here. I certainly agree with Chris Marcotte. He brought up a lot of good points, and I'm not going to go over them, but I do agree with everything that he has to say. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. Everything, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said, but I really do think that you should either vote yes for the sales and distribution or put it to a referendum. Thank you.
Judy Kilty?
Can I speak? I moved.
No, you're not a resident now. Sorry. Okay.
Really important, though.
All right, Jonathan Grant?
Thank you. Congratulations on your new roles. Happy belated Thanksgiving and early Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. A couple things. For those that have spoken, I'm not really good arguments from both sides, but I'm going to take this from a
John, your address.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. Jonathan Grande, 33 Spruceland Road. Sorry. I'm going to try to attack this from a couple perspectives. One is the economic point, which has been talked about a lot. Connecticut is not Massachusetts, so we can't compare how Massachusetts model works compared to Connecticut. Their legislature is not our legislature. Colorado is brought up, same thing. We only have to look what Connecticut says. I know we have some attorneys in the room. So we know that if you guys decide to undo the referendum, and I may be saying that wrong, but I think you know what I mean, you still have to get the state's approval for the diversity, equity, and inclusion. They would still have to approve it. They probably would, but still, that's still another step that has to be gone through that I'm not sure all the residents are aware of that. If the vote says, if you guys say yes, that's not the end. There's still more work has to be done. Secondly, the taxes, and those who have looked at the bill will know this, and you guys probably on the board know this, they just can't be spent anywhere. There are certain buckets that they have to be allocated into. One of them, which was really surprising, was mentioned earlier, was for addiction and prevention. That to me was a real head scratcher. That to me is almost an admission from the state itself that this is not good. If they're going to take the money that's raised from sale of pot and then go and turn around and use it to get people not to use pot, really just is mind-blowing and baffling. That just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I don't see a big economic injection for the town. I think that'll help people that have drug problems, no doubt, but the whole town won't benefit from that. I would much rather see, if it was possible, have leaf collection again, if we can get that again from some kind of revenue source. But selling pot isn't going to do it. That's not going to get us to get leaf collection, just as an example. Third, let me just knock down the convenience argument. People talk about, well, it's going to be convenient. We don't have to go to Springfield. We don't have to go to another town. If you want convenience, just grow your own. That it can't get much more convenient than that. Just grow your own weed in your own house if you want it. You don't have to have a dispensary for that. And lastly, I don't think, and I don't have statistics to show this, just circumstantial evidence, I don't really think there's a huge demand in our town for it. There's been a lot of argument and a lot of talk about it. But if we just look at the CBD shops that have come and gone, they're not even in business anymore. So if there is a big demand for it, I think people can grow their own. I don't think they're going to want to have to go to a shop and then you guys find out that, or you already know you can't use it for the places you want it to use for the tax revenue. I just don't see a real benefit for the town in that regard, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Lynn Kostek.
Good evening. Lynn Kostek, 13 Teach Street, Enfield. Congratulations to all of you for getting your positions. I need my glasses. One thing I like to start to say is that everyone's worried about the children with this marijuana issue. You know what? Yeah, the kids are going to get this stuff one way or the other. But you know what? It's the parents. If you're not watching your own kid, then you're the problem. It's not your problem. It's not my problem. It's the parents' problem. Well, with that being said, I would like to start by saying that I myself don't use marijuana. However, I have educated myself on the subject. Getting a dispensary in Enfield is not only financially wise, but safer as well. Children and teens will not have access to this facility. This would be a highly secured place. Another way of obtaining marijuana is through a dealer. It is clean marijuana, but very expensive. You have to know someone who knows someone in order to get that kind of clean marijuana. Then there is what people are using to say the bad weed. And that's what the kids are buying. This is where your kids come in and they're giving it to the kids cheap. Why? Because it's either cut or laced with some other drugs. And the newest thing is it's being laced with fentanyl. And I'm not sure if any of you know about fentanyl, but if you take a salt shaker or a salt grinder and you just turn that salt grinder around and just turn it once, that little bit of salt that comes out, that's all it takes for an overdose of fentanyl. It doesn't take much. And they don't even have to ingest it, because as soon as you're touching the marijuana to roll a joint, to break it up, to whatever these kids are doing with it, it gets absorbed into the skin, and this is how they're either getting high or they're dying from the overdose. So is it from the marijuana dispensaries? No, it's from the streets. It's not clean weed that kills people, it's the dirty weed. It's the street weed. So with all that being said, if you have a good connection with the dealer, go for it. If not, let's put in a dispensary. What's the big deal? You know, there's doctors that are doing a worse thing right now. They're prescribing opioids. And like my daughter, who just had back surgery, they gave her opioid after opioid after opioid. And then all of a sudden cut her off. They're saying, okay, you're on your own. She goes, well, but what about my back pain? You know what the doctor told her? Doctor told her, smoke marijuana. Well, and then here's the funny part. Someone mentioned tonight, the doctor will prescribe marijuana. Doctors can't prescribe marijuana. You have to go out and get it yourself. But like I said, you either have the street stuff that's laced with something, or you have to know someone who knows someone and get the good stuff that's already clean. But then trying to go through that line is ridiculous. So now this is where the dispensary comes in, which is approximately the same price as you would get from a dealer. It's still way above $50. So, the other issue too is, you're comparing. Some people are comparing this with alcohol, and if you're gonna sit down and relax and put an end to your day, it's either gonna be a glass of wine or smoke a joint. So what? Big deal. There shouldn't be a problem. So I'm going to leave it all up to you. Either we make this a referendum or we vote on it. But whatever the case, I think it's a good financial move for Enfield if we do this. And I know we can keep it away from the children, but it's a good thing for the adults to have in this town where we're not going out of state to go purchase this. Thank you very much and happy holidays.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Good evening, everyone. Jean Acree, 61 Brookside Village. I'm against having the cannabis dispensaries, and I think we should focus on keeping the town of Enfield a safe, healthy environment for all of our residents, and particularly for our children, all right, for them to grow up. There is a possibility for added problems in the future, so good luck on your decision. But, for example, when I say problems, added problems, it could be more extensive drug use in the future or more social and emotional issues, such as dependency. So I think this should be left out of our town, but this is just my decision. So good luck and may God be with you. Merry Christmas and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
For a first or second time?
First time.
My name is Peter Janitis, 3 Farmstead Circle, and while I was listening to all these people, I just learned how to write notes on a phone without an 11-year-old around. No, I'd like to congratulate everybody that got elected to the town council. I know it takes a lot of work. And also for you new members, you're getting quite a baptism on this particular issue for the first time. It's interesting sitting up there and listening to what everybody has to say. I know when I was on the board, my mind was swayed a couple times. Most people speaking here tonight, it's unbelievable how well you speak. You make good points on both sides, many of you. But the key word in that last statement is beliefs. It's what you believe. You're not going to change anybody's mind who believes one way or the other very strongly. If you start to listen to your facts, and you got to be careful with facts because they can be manipulated. But just look into, your heart and the people who are coming up before you and speaking, and the points that they're trying to make. As a teacher of 38 years, and I've seen an awful lot and done an awful lot, when we talk about these dispensaries and drug use in town, they're two completely separate issues. They're not the same. This town is racked with drug use. I mean, I saw it in school. I used to play basketball with the cops all the time. We used to sit and talk at bars after a while, and it's amazing. I mean, Thompsonville got racked over the coals for years and years and years, but it wasn't just Thompsonville. It's all over this town. The use of drugs. I think what you're going to have to do is listen, think strongly about it, and do what you guys think is the best for the town. Not what you think you want to do, but if your mind has been swayed one way or the other, then go with it. A lot of speakers have got up here and said, you know, you either make the decision tonight, which is one of your choices, or you put it out for referendum. I wish that had been done before this election, but it wasn't. Using the criteria that this election and the big change in the board took place because of the previous vote on the use of these, or the establishment of these dispensaries, you know, you can argue that to the moon goes down. But you got to do what you got to do. It's not an easy decision. And as I said, the people who are strongly on one side or the other, you're not going to change your minds. But there's a lot of stuff that was said that made a lot of sense on both sides. I know if I was sitting up there, I'd postpone the vote for at least one more meeting so you could all sit together and talk over this thing. You know, this point was made, that point was made. But don't rush through it. There's no rush whether you do it tonight or you do it in 2 weeks. So good luck.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the first time?
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Davis, and I reside at 201 North Maple Street. So much for starting your town council meeting at 7 o'clock. I am up here for I am in favor of having a dispensary in our town. And let's remember, in November, first it came July, and then it was behind closed doors to find a way to take the citizens' voices. So they all learned that, which was then to hold, and when you hold supermajority, they had the votes. So it wasn't even bipartisan. And I wouldn't even say it has to be. The bit before, everybody asked for it to be brought to referendum. No one cared. Now I'm truly amazed because what was made to this town was you guys all signed a statement you would overturn it if you won the election. That's what you ran on, was that signed document to us, the people. I'm all for a referendum. That's what I wanted from day one. We were stripped of that. The bit is, turn it back where it initially was, so overturn this ban, and then let it take its natural course like any other business does in our community. Or are we going to hold a referendum for every business that wants to come to Enfield and leave that up to the people? If you want to do it for one, then you might as well change our town charter and do it for every single business. Are we just going to pick and choose one? That's what I'm not understanding. Every business has a right to apply to come to our town, to go to the planning and zoning, to do whatever protocols they have to do, and cross all their T's and dot all their I's. So why is this such a major issue that was rushed through and not just left for its natural course? I, for one, am for it, as I've had medical marijuana. And with that, I had to turn over my CDL Class A with all endorsements because you're not supposed to work and use heavy equipment when you are on marijuana. So there is a lot of stuff that goes with it. Here's one of the great things about Enfield, I'd say. We got one of the best cancer places in our town. How do I know? Because that's where I was. 5 months of chemo there. So as much as I had the medical and had to go to South Windsor, stand in a long line in the middle of winter, bald with my hat on, because the chemo took all my hair. Man, I would have loved if we had one here. But nope, had to go way out there sick as a dog. Why? Because I had to be present to pick it up. That's how strict it is. Until I finally got my wife approved by medical to go down. But then it became easier to go over the mass line to go get it because it was closer. What is really the problem that you're against marijuana? I don't get it. It's a business. It's in our streets. It's being laced with fentanyl. That's where the issues are, because it's dirty. And people want to say the 3% is spent for this or spent for that. Tell me what other business in our town gives us 1%. We don't get anything, right? We get the taxes they pay. So this is an extra 3%. It's just a bonus. But for people to say we can't use it on this or that shouldn't even matter. It should just be, well, they're giving it because no other business gets it. I just think it will benefit our community as one. And honestly, if someone don't want the business in here after you overturn this, they have a right to petition and do their whole part that they want to stop any business in this town, as we just tried in District 3 with Win Stanley. That didn't happen and it's there. So the residents have rights. So let's just do what we all ran on, put this through, and put it back to the people. And if they want to not have it, they can take their protocol, the proper procedures, to stop a business from coming from our community. Bring it back to the original, to the people again, and overturn what was backdoored. Thank you very much. Oh, and let me just add too, I know it was emailed to each and every one of you, the petition that was online that recently looked, and there's even more, but the one that was mailed to you showed you had 348 in favor of having the dispensary, overturning this and allowing the dispensary. I don't think anybody else has more than that signature saying to not allow it here. But I do know it was sent to all of you because I was CC'd with it. I do have a copy of all the signatures if you guys need it, but I do know you have it. So I hope you do listen to the people, and let's just do what's right. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to talk for the first time? A second time? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Frank Alamo, 9 Valley View Circle, sitting member of Planning and Zoning. I'm sad that Kathleen left. We are good friends, and I think we were both in Miss Boyagin's art class together. But I wanted to just to come back up and talk about the planning and zoning piece. I was just giving you fact of things that are going on. I wasn't saying that it's law and we have to do anything. I would defer you to the town attorney for that, obviously. But we are doing the PLCD and we are doing the zoning regulations. Now, Kathleen said that cannabis sales are allowed in industrial areas. I don't know that for sure. From what I understand, she was saying we were putting the cart before the horse. Now, again, this is coming from the planning office. From what I understand, we have to have some ordinance in place enable for somebody to apply on a zoning piece. Because what would they be applying for if they came before us without any regulation to plug into? So I was just trying to just say what's going on out there. It wasn't, a 100% fact. Just stuff for us to use, again, in the toolbox to help you guys, when you do come down to a decision where and how and when. Again, I respect Kathleen. We're good friends. And, the Win Stanley project just came up again. Again, I understand that probably shouldn't have happened. And I said it was poor planning before. And, Kathleen may know more about planning and zoning. She sat there for many, many years. She could be right. But that's how I think we have to move forward, so we know how to plug everything in, and that's what I was trying to say. I'm not trying to say that it's you have to do that. I was just trying to give you some tools in the toolbox. And Jim, just based on what I've been told from the planning department, that we have to have something set up for somebody to apply for. Thank you.
Lucian?
Lucian Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive. I just want everybody to really separate medical from recreational, number one. And second, now what I'm putting to the council. You have the vocal minority, the silent majority. Well, tonight you've heard from the vocal minority both sides of this issue. I stress, put it to a referendum and let that silent majority make the vote one way or the other, and that's what we live with. And You can eliminate what was put on, but I would suggest you put a moratorium on it until you get that vote from the town, from referendum, where the town solidly, you count the votes. If they vote they want it, we get it. If they vote we don't want it, we don't get it. But give that silent majority, either way, the opportunity to make the decision for this town. And the best advice I can give you is you can reverse what was done, put a moratorium on it. This way it's not going to move one way or the other until we have a referendum. But it doesn't close the door for businesses to start looking to come here. So if they vote in favor, the businesses come. It's plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to come up a second time? Okay, come on up.
Leslie Harrison, 3 Crestwood Drive. So I've listened to everything that everyone has said. And there's just a couple of things I'd like to point out for those that don't know this. When you're prescribed medical marijuana, you are allowed a higher level of THC in your medicine. Recreational users don't have that option to get the highest THC available. So everyone here that's so concerned about people being high on recreational marijuana, I use medical marijuana, so I'm even higher than they are. But I use it so that I'm not vomiting. Also, I want to say to Liz Davis, I agree, we have an infusion center in this town where people are getting their cancer treatment. And yet they are so ill, they are forced to drive to South Windsor to get their medicine, or go to Mass and buy it recreationally and spend a ton more money. Or you can pay the state extra so that you have an authorized caregiver to pick your medicine up. Not everybody has that option. We don't all have families that have nothing better to do than drive to South Windsor and get our medicine, but we need our medicine after our treatment. And there should be a dispensary here for us to get that medicine. And also, if marijuana becomes less available, it is taken away from the recreational side. The medical side is given preference. So they're not going to run out of their medicine. Recreational users might run out of their weed and have to go wherever in town and buy some, but the medical people get preference. I'm saying that, you know, recreational people get really high and all. We're getting the higher THC. It's our medicine to help us. The other thing I want to say that other people have also mentioned, the security at dispensaries, it's incredible. There are securities outside. There's a security process to get inside. Once you're inside, there's another process to identify yourself. There's no people going in there that are, 16-year-olds and buying marijuana. The state regulates the licenses. The doctors have to prescribe it for specific reasons, not just because you want it. And I think the biggest thing is when all of you new people were running, it was my understanding that the ban was going to be overturned. It wasn't my understanding that immediately we would be welcoming dispensaries. I understood there were going to be hoops to jump through. I do think the ban has to be overturned. If there has to be a referendum, if y'all can't, do your thing because it's just not possible in this moment, then maybe it should be a referendum vote. But the ban itself should not be in place, and we were told it would be overturned. And that's what I'm done saying. Thank you.
Is there anybody else a second time? Liz?
Extremely quick.
Someone texted me something to clarify. Elizabeth Davis reside at 201 North Maple Street. Just like to clarify, Kathleen Sarno sent a text to clarify. She never said it was zoned for cannabis. Someone said that it was agricultural zoned. What she made clear is industrial and agricultural are the same. She just wanted to clarify that. She never said it was set that a place dispensary can go there. She just said they're zoning the same. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else a second time? A third time? Then I declare this public hearing closed. Thank you. How about a 2-minute recess while we go to the bathroom, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Everyone, welcome to the Enfield Town Council regular meeting, Monday, December 6th, 2021. The time is 8:40 p.m. in the council chambers. You may also watch this on YouTube. The prayer, please stand. May the residents stay safe and healthy during these difficult times we are experiencing, and pray for our loved ones who are battling health issues. May the town council work collaboratively to serve the residents with integrity and compassion. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco. Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Here.
Mayor Crisati.
Here.
Councilor Despard.
Here.
Councilor Finger.
Here.
Councilor Hopkins.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig. I see him. Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Pisner.
Here.
Councilor Santinella.
Here.
Councilor Ungary.
Here.
That's 10 members present, 1 absent.
The fire evacuation announcement. In the event of a fire, there are exits in the back of the chambers, and to my left and to the audience right. Please exit through the doors and downstairs and into the parking lot. The minutes of the preceding meetings. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes for the special meeting?
Move.
Councilor Hopkins, second.
Second.
It's Councilor Mangini. Is there any discussion, additions, or deletions? By show of hands in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? I can't tell, is that in favor or is that an abstention? For Mike. Okay, so 10 in favor. Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the regular meeting, November 15th?
So moved.
Meetings? Councilor Mangini? Second, Councilor Ungary. All in favor, raise your hand. Against? Abstentions? 10 in favor, none against, no abstentions. There are no special guests. Public communications. The first round, we will be approximately 1 hour. Any person willing to speak, please state your name and address for the record. You're going to have 5 minutes to speak in the first round, 3 minutes for any subsequent times that you come up. Please refrain from personalities, and we ask everyone to be respectful in the audience. Ms. Cogtella.
Long wait. Okay. My name is Caroline Cogtella, 5 Main Street, Enfield. My only question is has the council had the opportunity to discuss the issue of eminent domain regarding my home as I advised at the last council meeting? The reason I am asking this is that it is my understanding if the state of Connecticut does not get any direction from this council, they will condemn my property before the end of the month. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Janitis?
Peter Janitis, 3 Farmstead Circle. Just an idea that I had, because my wife is in retail. Has the council or the police department thought of taking 1 or 2 cruisers? I think there's one in each district, usually around the clock. If you could get one behind, say, Ocean State Joblet that sits there. Because a lot of these businesses, people are walking out and ripping stuff off their shelves. a lot of the businesses. I don't know how prevalent it is to the knowledge of everybody, whether these businesses are just eating it and shut up. But if there was like an emergency number that they could call and you had a cop sitting over behind Ocean Jobs Lot, they could be to any one of the 4 squares or malls that we have in town within probably a minute and a half. You got the one where Costco is, you got the one where Kohl's is, you got the one where Ocean State is, and then the one across the street where Bed Bath & Beyond is. So if they had like a number, when they see, a lot of times they see these people coming in, they know what they're going to do. It's just that they're told they can't do anything about it. So if there was a number they could quick hit it and a cop could be there, maybe we could get these people staying out of Enfield. So I don't know if it's your privy to look at it or bring it up with the police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Chris?
Hi there, Chris D'Antonio, 18 Montana Road. I'd just like to first say I'm sorry that for all the trouble from last meeting caused by the bike path plan and all, but I did want to personally thank those that voted in favor of it. I see it as very strong potential and a real positive for Enfield. I'm glad we can get some immediate benefit out of it, which I think was, explained last meeting, providing, pretty direct access from town center to connecting directly to the Windsor Locks Canal Trail. And admittedly, that is, primarily used for recreation. Not that recreation should be understated at all. It is important. But I did want to kind of just bring to light what I see as the real potential of it. The real win is adding, protected, and the plan or the initial plan is to be separated from the road. Is to really have protected facilities for our most vulnerable, users. Because there's a real shortage of that in the town. I'm not sure if you guys have personally cycled around town. I biked here from my house, half mile away. Real quick ride right along Route 5. It's not a fun ride. When I was going to work, and hopefully come January, once I get back on the bus, I get to do it again every morning, and I actually enjoy it. But I don't think for a second that it's safe. And I'm sure if you found yourself cycling on Route 5 or Elm Street, 220, 190, right? These are the central, economic hubs of the town. Really, there's a lot of people employed on these routes. There's a lot of people that walk and cycle these routes. These aren't people that are showing up at these meetings, right? I'm one of the privileged people that takes the bus into Hartford because I can, right? I can drive my car to the park and ride if I want. Some people don't have that option. So really, I want to bring this this concern to light in saying that this bike trail, even right now, is just getting us, 3/4 of a mile. It is, yeah, it's kind of a pity, but I mean, it's basically like free money, so why turn it down? What it does set us up to do is to really provide for more users and think, again, users that aren't necessarily showing up at these meetings, protecting them on our roads, making it safe to travel. So again, thank you for your positive vote. I hope, as planning comes forward, more state money, possibly federal money, coming from infrastructure and all, we can keep these in mind, creating safe routes, especially along the most heavily traveled routes, because we need bike paths. We need sidewalks too. Route 5, there's a lot of Route 5 that doesn't have sidewalks on both sides of the road. It's pretty pitiful, right? It's not like nothing happens on half the side of the road, right? There's a lot of residences, a lot of businesses on both sides of the road. It's a very walkable area. It's a very high potential area. Route 5, 190, where that bike path is going to be built onto Route 5, where it connects. Many people walk straight across onto 190. There's a heavily traveled footpath of people walking to the stores, maybe to their jobs on 190. So I just want to bring that to your attention that sidewalks, bike paths are critical to protect our vulnerable users. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to talk? Yes.
Hi, Pam Townsend, 54 Kimberly Drive. I just wanted to remind everybody that on December 18th is Wreaths Across America at St. Pat's Cemetery. 12 o'clock is when the ceremony begins. However, we all know parking is a little insane in St. Pat's Cemetery. It really doesn't exist. So we're going to do the one-way traffic like we have like we did last year. It seemed to work out really well. We have, I'm really excited to say we have 1,196 wreaths to lay. Not quite 100% for St. Pat's, but quite a bit more than we have in the past. So thank you, Enfield, and all the groups that helped sponsor us to get us to that point. So just wanted to remind you, come out, please come on out. It's a nice ceremony. And it is really, truly a community ceremony. It's not just the veterans, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We have Home Depot coming. We have a lot of the first responders are participants. The high school is part of it. So it is a community event. So please come out and check it out. Thank you. Oh, and of course, help us lay some wreaths.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to come in front? Lucian?
Lucian Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive, also Vice Chairman of the Enfield Veterans Council and Commander American Legion Post 154. I just want to wish everybody in the town a Merry Christmas, a happy and safe New Year, and happy holidays for whatever holiday you celebrate at this time of year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucian. Is there anybody else that would like to come in front of the council? George?
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. I'll keep it short because I know we're really running late tonight. I want to talk a minute about Officer Austin. It was appreciated that he spent some time at the Whole Donut this past Sunday morning when everyone else was probably talking about the parade at that night. But he spent time inside there getting to know some of the people and was appreciated that at least he showed up. In spite, there might have been maybe 2 or 3 others that could have come, but at least he showed up, and it was very welcomed by the people that were there. I know I was one of them, so. I want to talk about the overtime that's always in the Town of Enfield, Thompsonville revitalization budget. I know from the past it's not really overtime. It represents police officers that are on duty over in the Thompsonville area, running around and bicycling around and walking around to police the area. It went from $38,000 in 2019, and next year it's going to be $75,000. That's probably, I don't know if it's the 4 police officers and a dog or what it is, but anyway, it's, to me, should be part of the police department's budget and not in the revitalization of Thompsonville budget. We're going to have Are each section of the town have its own police department and little wedge here and there? I don't think so. I think we need to put it back where it belongs, which is in the police department budget. I'm tired as another resident paying for the Thompsonville revitalization when I think that those police officers are supporting all of us. The second thing I want to talk, and we have a budget coming up, so I'm hoping maybe we'll take a second look at where this money is, and maybe it can go to where it should be. The second thing I want to bring up, and I've asked Councilman Hopkins to look into this. As everybody knows, we've got a lot of new monies into the town because of the revaluation. The assessment has really gone up, something like, I don't know, let's say 24% in total. I want to see if we, as veterans, are entitled to more money as a tax exemption for the veterans' property tax exemption. Because, as many of you know, the law requires municipalities to give wartime veterans and their surviving spouses certain property tax exemptions. There's another part of the law that says when you have a revaluation, you have to take into consideration this particular law and allocate money towards that. Most people don't realize this, so I've asked him to look into that. That's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Is there anybody else that would like to come up in front of the council? Okay.
Matt Schmidt, 1304 Bigelow Commons. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I want to speak for the lady that's going through the problem with the eminent domain. Tonight we heard from a lot of people about the dispensary. It's something that affects a lot of people in town, but I think the town council should also be concerned about things that only affect one person in town. So I hope you revisit it and take a look at it. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come in front of the council? Okay.
Peter Janitis, 3 Farmstead Circle. I don't know when to shut my mouth, but I want to thank you guys for letting the public speak as much as they did tonight. 1 time, 2 time, no time limit. I hope the Board of Ed learned something from you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Janitis. Is there anybody else that would like to speak a second time? Public communications are closed. Number 8 on the agenda, Councilor Communications. Councilor Mangini.
Thank you. I just have a couple of items. Wanted to thank, I think it's the Cultural Arts Committee, along with our fire departments, police departments in town, for putting on a wonderful torchlight parade. And also Pastor Greg, who did a blessing at the Congregational Church for elected officials. I thought that was very nice, very considerate. And also, I want to thank the Veterans Council for a wonderful Christmas celebration yesterday they had. It's always an honor to participate with the veterans and respect them. And we did have a meeting, and I'll just bring it forward. A little bit of a concern that a whole lot of people, as normal, when we had our Veterans Day parade, were not in attendance. And I think that maybe it's because people are now starting to come out of, the COVID routine, and I'm hoping that's the case. So maybe more advertising, more publicity will help, spark that. And of course, Wreaths Across America, I'm hoping for a great turnout, Pam. I know we'll be there with the Boy Scouts too. So just one more announcement. The DAR, Daughters of American Revolution, we were able to choose 2 candidates from our applicant pool. One was Michael Saphir, social studies teacher at Summers Middle School, Mabel B. Avery, I believe. He was awarded a monetary gift from our chapter and a magazine subscription for our DAR magazine. Nicole Catuccio from Enfield High School teacher, teaches history, not only won also a small monetary award and the magazine subscription, but we sent her off to the state. And unfortunately, she did not win the state level, but it was still an honor for Enfield to be able to pass one of our applicants to the state. So congratulations to those 2 applicants. It was wonderful reading their bios and reading how other teachers and peers perceive the two applicants. So just wanted to report that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselor comments? Counselor Finger?
Just real quick, I was really impressed with this business. I had my granddaughter up from North Carolina, took her there, and we basically almost spent the whole day. We watched an alligator get fed. We watched snakes. She was able to hold one, which I would never do. Riverside Reptiles. That is an awesome place. If you ever get a chance to take your kids, grandkids, who cares, niece, nephew, whatever, that's the place to go. I think it was awesome. It's right on South Road. It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Counselor Santinella?
Yep. First of all, Mrs. Cogtella, I met with you and about 20 members of your community on Thursday night. I spoke with Mayor Crissati Friday afternoon. Obviously, he has as much history on what's going on with your home. We asked the town attorney today for a contact at the state for us to talk to, and I will make a call tomorrow morning to find out what we can do, if anything, at this point to help you. Your concerns are not falling on deaf ears, and I am, my heart goes out to you. The situation is a tough one, and we will, Mayor Crissati and I will make that call for you tomorrow. Okay. Beyond that, I wanted to just say that on December 15th from 4 to 5, thanks to the help of Nelson Treso, there's going to be an information session at the Pearl Street Library for the people on Franklin Street to discuss the proposed bike path that is looking to be going down that street and the implications that it's going to have for the neighborhood. And we will be canvassing the neighborhood with some flyers to invite people to come and give their input. And then the final thing, on the 18th of November, I had the privilege of visiting Chief Fox and the police department, and I did a ride-along for the first time. I got to go to roll call. I got to sit in the break room. I will tell you, it was a completely eye-opening experience. The police department was incredibly hospitable and gracious. I spent 8 hours listening and learning a lot about what these men and women do for us, and I would encourage all of you, if you are so inclined, to take that opportunity. And I want to give my special thanks to Sergeant Pelletier, who tolerated me in his car for 8 hours. I think we did solve most of the world's problems, but no one really cares what the two of us think. So thank you, Chief Fox, for your hospitality and a really great experience.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the kind words. I'll be sure to pass them on.
Any other counselor comments? But before you, I'm going to go. Okay, a couple of comments that I have to make. For everybody that commented tonight, we respect your opinions, and can't wait for Wreaths Across America. That's a great event. We look forward to that at St. Pat's Cemetery. Also, in regard to the Torchlight Parade and Carol Sing, what a huge success. I think it was the largest crowd that I've ever seen assembled going up and down. We were actually going down Route 5 and into the town green. The crowd was unbelievable. The police and their security was outstanding. They have to be commended. The buildings and grounds people, the People for People who are selling hot chocolate and their snacks. Once again, Enfield Police Department, all the fire departments, and especially the Enfield Fire District, who sponsored the parade this year, and the Carol Sing, the JFK Chorus, the Enfield Community Band. A special shout out to Mary Keller and Emily McIntosh, who heads up the Enfield Cultural Arts and Commission. Chloe Clark, the kid governor, walked with us and helped with the lighting of the Christmas tree. It was just a great event. Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus. And on another note, it was nice to see Councilor Bosco and his family out And it was very heartwarming to see Councilor Bosco and his family. So I have to say that in public. Ms. Cogtella, we will be, like Councilor Santinella mentioned, we will be discussing this issue. Once again, the Enfield Police Department and their Toys for Joy program, it's a great program. Go out and support it. The other thing is go out and support your Enfield Farmers Market. I was at the square, and once again, people are out. People want to be out, but you know what? People were also being safe when they're out there. And so I am really optimistic, and moving forward, and everybody staying safe and being healthy. Also, the Enfield Safe Grad was another success. That's all I have to say for right now. Deputy Mayor. Okay, Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor Crissati. I'll be very brief. I do want to echo the thanks for everybody who helped put on the Torchlight Parade. Your work really made a lot of great memories for children that will probably last for the rest of their lives. So thank you to everybody for coming together. It was a beautiful event.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Sakala.
First, ditto to everything everybody said about the Torchlight Parade and carol sing. It was pretty awesome. Also, I just want to give a congratulations and a shout out to Lori Gates and everybody who participated in the Cookies for Camouflage. That's a wonderful event every year. It was about 117 boxes this year, and that's 862 pounds of cookies that went over to our troops overseas. So thank you to Lori Gates, her entire crew, Enfield Hua, and everybody that participated in that. And lastly, I would like him to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items B1, B3, B6, B7, and E, G, H, I, J, and K to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, a second. Second. Councilor Santinella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have a handful of quick items for you, but I believe you'll find them positive in nature. I'm pleased to let you know that the closing has occurred for the Enfield Express at 800 Enfield Street. There are any number of people that deserve accolades for the work that went into getting that from where it was quite some time ago to the present. DPW is obviously deeply involved. The council was extraordinarily supportive. The town attorney's office. The list is endless. But I'm pleased to let you know that that is a town facility at this point. The Eli Whitney roof, I know, has been a source of concern, and I know that several of you have taken calls on this. The latest update obtained just this afternoon in anticipation of this evening, the Eagle Rivet Roofing Company will be on site tomorrow to continue repairs to the roof after 2 more leaks appeared this morning. It continues to be a work in progress. Higgins Park, the walking path at Higgins Park, grading has been finished and paving is scheduled for tomorrow, weather permitting. Social Services Department will be moving to the Alcorn School effective 12/9 because of the impending sale of 100 High Street. And lastly, the demolition of the adult daycare on Beach Road has commenced. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Attorney report.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Just one quick reminder that the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities is having a workshop for newly elected officials January 8 in Bristol. It's a free event. It's a Saturday, but CCM puts on a wonderful program that will address the fundamentals of municipal government, FOI, all the things you'd want to know as a newly elected official. If you need information, Deb McCarthy can get that to you, or please reach out to me. And that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Through our mayor to the town attorney, there was a lot of talk at the public hearing about the referendum and the ability or inability to send this vote or issue for the cannabis to referendum. So I know that the law specifically talks about this. So if you, if possible, if you could clarify what you do or don't know about the referendum and the cannabis issue, that would be really helpful.
Sure, Deputy Mayor. I was just skimming the 303-page law as we sat here.
That's what I thought.
And we generally don't prefer to give legal opinions on the fly here from this seat. We prefer to be at our desk writing and researching and analyzing and having it proofread. But the short answer is as follows. The law, Public Act 21-1, Section 83, provides, and I quote, upon the petition of not less than 10% of the electors of any municipality, and then there are certain requirements, a question may be put to the voters, essentially a referendum. I would contrast what is in this law with what is in the charter. So when we think of a municipal referendum, for example, on capital expenditures, your charter, Chapter 6, Section 9, provides that this council may pass a resolution on certain capital expenditures and cause that to go to referendum. So it is initiated by the council. As I sit here, my initial reaction is that's not the case with the marijuana. With the marijuana cannabis law, the legislature, in its wisdom, deemed that the council would have certain powers to pass an ordinance, or it could go to planning and zoning. Some towns have passed moratoriums. But if there is to be a referendum, as was discussed to some extent tonight, that would be initiated by the electors. I trust that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Talbert. Number 11, the report of special committees of the council. Do we have any special, do we have any comments from special committees?
Sure.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Sure. The JFK committee met on the 2nd, and just to give everybody an update on JFK progress, the last wing, which is Red Wing and some of the hub, will be turned over to the school within the next couple of weeks. So the scheduling of the furniture installation will probably be next week. So big progress there. And we have, starting in January, we will have the old cafe area under construction, which is now being used as swing space. And they're going to submit another payment request to the state this week. So onward and upward, and we're making really good progress over at JFK.
Thank you. I do have to make one report. DPW met this past week, and we are still in the process of making revisions for the solid waste ordinance and the fee schedules. We had real good discussion. We had good conversation. We're just going to be bringing it back to our committee one final time, and then it'll come in front of the council. I just wanted to give everybody an update in regard to the ordinances that we discussed. Are there anybody else? Okay. Old business, items A, B, and C will remain on the table. Number 13, new business consent agenda, appointments by town council, appointments town manager appointed, council approved, and appointments P and Z. There are none. We will be moving to miscellaneous. Items B1, Commission on Aging. Town, a vacancy exists due to commissioner no longer having residency. Replacement would be until January 1st, 2024. Do I have a nomination?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
I'd like to nominate Mary Ann Harris.
Second.
Okay, Counselor Ungary, are there any nominations? Any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Counselor Mangini, a second. Counselor Finger, all in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? 10-0 in favor. Okay. Excuse me, any discussions? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati,
4.
Councilor Despard,
4.
Councilor Finger,
4.
Councilor Hopkins,
4.
Councilor Ludwig.
Can't hear him.
I think he's having technical.
Yeah, we can't hear him.
Okay, Councilor Pisner. Oh, sorry, Councilor Mangini,
Mary Ann Harris.
Councilor Pisner,
4.
Councilor Santinella,
4.
Councilor Ungary,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Mary Ann Harris.
That is 9 in favor. Oops, sorry, 10 in favor, none against, no, 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions, because I can't hear Councilor Ludwig.
Item 3, Library Board of Trustees, term of office. Item 3, Library Board of Trustees, term of office of Marian Maruka expires December 31st, 2021. Reappointment or replacement would be until 12/31/2024. Do I have a nomination? Councilor Hopkins.
I nominate Marian Maruka.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Finger. Are there any nominations? Any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Councilor Santinella, and a second?
Second.
Councilor Mangini. Let's see. Okay. All in favor? Any against? And no abstentions? 10 in favor? Okay. Any discussions? None. Okay. Sheila, roll call, please.
Mayor Crisati,
4.
Councilor Despard,
4.
Councilor Finger,
4.
Councilor Hopkins,
4.
Councilor Mangini,
4.
Councilor Pisner,
4.
Councilor Santinella,
4.
Councilor Ungary,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Marian Maruka.
None in favor, none against. 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions. It's getting late.
I agree. Item 6, Zoning Board of Appeals, alternate term of office of Richard Stroini expires January 1st, 2022. Reappointment or replacement would be until January 1st, 2026. Do I have a nomination? Councilor Pisner,
I'd like to nominate Richard Stroini.
second.
Second.
Councilor Ungary. Are there any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
Second.
Councilor Pisner. All in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? 10 in favor? No abstentions? Okay. Any discussions? Sheila, roll call?
Mayor Crisati,
4.
Councilor Despard,
4.
Councilor Finger,
4.
Councilor Hopkins,
4.
Councilor Mangini,
Richard Stroini.
Councilor Pisner,
4.
Councilor Santinella,
4.
Councilor Ungary,
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Richard Stroini.
9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Zoning Board of Appeals, the alternate, the term of the office of Andrew
Urbanowitz.
Urbanowitz expires January 1st, 2022. Reappointment or replacement would be until January 1st, 2026. Do I have a nomination? Councilor Mangini?
Yes, I'd like to reappoint Andrew Urbanowitz.
Second?
Second.
Councilor Hopkins? Are there any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Councilor Finger, a second? Councilor Santinella? All in favor? Any against? Any abstentions? 10 in favor, none against, no abstentions. Any discussions? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Despard.
4.
Councilor Finger.
4.
Councilor Hopkins.
4.
Councilor Mangini.
Andrew Urbanowitz.
Councilor Pisner.
4.
Councilor Santinella.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Andrew Urbanowitz.
It's 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
We move to item E, discussion resolution, request for transfer of funds for public safety DUI enforcement grant, $76,612. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is made to the DUI enforcement program. Overtime, $75,064. Medicare, $1,089. Workers' comp, $308. Unemployment, $151. From the DUI enforcement grant. And the DUI enforcement grant, $76,612. Certification, I hereby certify that the above stated funds are available as of November 19, 2021. John A. Wilcox, Director of Finance. This was approved by Chris Bromson back in November 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, a second.
Second.
Councilor Despard, any discussion or questions? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Despard.
4.
Councilor Finger.
4.
Councilor Hopkins.
4.
Councilor Mangini.
4.
Councilor Pisner.
4.
Councilor Santinella.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item F, discussion resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a second amendment to a site lease agreement with American Towers Asset Sub 2 LLC. Resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a second amendment to a site lease agreement with American Towers Asset. Whereas the town council wishes to extend the lease on its communications tower located at 77 Town Farm Road, commonly known as the Enfield Transfer Station, and whereas the term of the lease is scheduled to expire September 30th, 2036, and whereas this amendment allows for one 5-year extension, an increase to $2,500 per month, and an annual escalation factor of 3%. Resolved that the acting town manager is empowered to enter into an amended site lease agreement which has been reviewed and approved by the town attorney in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with American Tower Asset Sub 2 LLC, prepared by the Finance Department, October 12, 2021.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, a second.
Second.
Councilor Pisner, any discussions? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Despard.
4.
Councilor Finger.
4.
Councilor Hopkins.
4.
Councilor Mangini.
4.
Councilor Pisner.
4.
Councilor Santinella.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item G, discussion resolution, the resolution repealing the Enfield Town Code Ordinance 21-2, commonly referred as the Town Ordinance prohibiting cannabis establishments. Whereas on September 7, 2021, the Enfield Town Council enacted an ordinance prohibiting cannabis establishments, and whereas the council wishes to revisit the ordinance and consider its repeal, and whereas the council held a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall Council Chambers on December 6, 2021, to allow public input on the proposed repeal of the ordinance prohibiting cannabis establishments. Now therefore be resolved that the council hereby repeals the ordinance prohibiting cannabis ordinance 21-2 of the Town Code, date prepared November 9, 2021, prepared by the Town Attorney's Office.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, a second. Counselor Santinello. Any discussions? Counselor, Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Thank you. So I do have a couple of prepared remarks, and then I did take notes while people were talking during the public hearing, so bear with me. I'm going to be supporting the rescinding of the ban on the cannabis. This is not a debate about the legalization of marijuana on if it should or shouldn't have been legalized. That ship has sailed. This is about if the town should rescind a ban they put in place 2 months ago against any and all cannabis establishments. Please also understand this has nothing to do with what I personally want or what I personally believe. For those of you who are against this rescinding, please understand this does not mean we will be having cannabis establishments or cultivators or anything related to cannabis on every single corner. And please understand that they are not welcoming to our youth and our children. Under the current legislation, we are allowed 1 cultivator and 1 cannabis store. That is it. The law allows people 21 and over to visit these establishments in order to purchase for recreational use. We are not advocating for kids to do drugs. There's nothing different for the youth in our town today than it was a year ago. It's still illegal for them. Addicts are not going to go to dispensaries. They're going to continue to get their drugs off the streets. For those of you for this rescinding of the ban, please note, this does not mean we're guaranteed an establishment in this town. The Social Equity Committee out of Hartford has a lot to say with who and where these establishments will go. Many people mentioned us trying to figure out where we should go for zoning and other details prior to either rescinding this ban or keeping it on there. But if this ban stood and we didn't rescind it, we would look into nothing. We would never speak to anybody. We would consider nothing. We would listen to nothing. We would research nothing. We want a seat at the table. We are looking to have an opportunity to see what these companies can bring to our town. This industry is highly regulated, highly restricted, and highly monitored. Rescinding this ban is just allowing us to consider it, and that's why I am supporting it.
Councilor Pisner?
I'm going to stand with what I said before. I am totally for medical marijuana. I have friends that have used it, family that has used it, and I have nothing against it. I just think there's a lot of unknowns with recreational. And I don't think at this time Enfield is the right place for it. I want to learn more about it. I think Enfield has always been, I want us to lead by example. I don't want us to just jump in and be the first one. So I like the fact that we said no to it. Maybe it could be reworded a little differently. I think zoning will come into play. But personally, I do not want to see recreational. So I am going to vote no tonight.
Okay. I'm going to make a comment. Tonight's cannabis resolution is bringing the issue back to default and to the state law. We're not adding anything new to this resolution. From here, we're going to be taking our time and exploring the options, educating ourselves and the public to this business opportunity. I'm going to have Councilor Santinello in a couple minutes discuss some of the things that he's going to be tackling in terms of what we're going to be doing. But in terms of the revenue for us municipalities and the general revenue, when I look at streetscape improvements, neighborhood developments, educational programs, youth employment, training programs, this is what these companies do. they just don't plunk in their businesses and organizations. They are part of your community, and they do certain things with the community. I think Mr. Norris, during the public communications, was talking about these plans that are set up. So this is all part of it. You know, services for individuals living in a municipality that were maybe released from Department of Corrections custody, or they're on probation and parole. They're going to be having services provided for these people. And this is what part of these funds are for. So, you know, it's going to be all part of the Social Services Department. One thing that we also have to remember, there's going to be policies and procedures related to this public act. All right? An act concerning responsible and equitable regulation of adult cannabis use. We're going to be giving directives, like Deputy Mayor Sakala mentioned, about Social Equity Council and specific advertising guidelines for these businesses who intend to participate in the retail of sale of cannabis. We are not saying tonight that these businesses are going to be here. What we're telling you tonight is that we are coming back to default, and we're going to examine and educate ourselves to this. Now I'm going to give the floor to Councilor Santinello.
Thank you, Mayor Crissati. So what we had discussed was establishing a new subcommittee to specifically address the issue of cannabis in Enfield. And its sole existence would be for us to do the kind of education and peer discussions with others who are in surrounding communities so that we can be better educated about what the implications of bringing a dispensary or having a dispensary in Enfield would be. And it would be things like law enforcement in our community, speaking with law enforcement in other communities so that we understand from them what the implications of these dispensaries have been in their communities. So we can take the time to do the work that we need to do in planning and zoning and other regulations in town so that if we get the opportunity to have a dispensary here, we are ready, we are more informed and prepared for that opportunity. And that is the goal of what our subcommittee will do. Thank you.
Councilor Ungar and then Councilor Finger.
Okay. Listening to the crowd that was here tonight, I think it's both sides, it's a partial representation of the town. So it's really hard to say. I can't say, oh, everyone in town wants it or everyone in town is against it. This is just a partial representation. So after a lot of researching and communications, I would be open to having a referendum and then let the town decide. However, I'd probably still vote the same because I've worked 8 years on the Enfield Together Coalition. And those that don't know, it's an anti-drug coalition. And it's fighting against the war on drugs with our kids and young adults in town. And they've worked really hard. They've had some great progress. So I can't, in good conscience, work with them for 8 years and then vote, sure, let's have marijuana in town. Also, through that coalition, I've gone to Washington, D.C., and I've worked as a lobbyist and talked to Murphy and Blumenthal and Joe Courtney about keeping those fundings, the grant money coming to our coalition, and they've obliged and they've supported us in a lot of different ways. So that's been a great learning experience too. So I'm not going to change my vote. I'm still going to vote no, but I do think it's a good idea to let the town decide and see what they think. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Finger?
Yes. I'd like to agree with Councilor Ungwire. I kept track of everybody who came up, their names, their addresses, stuff like that, and I kept track of everything that everybody said. People who were for it, I have 13. People against it, I have 10. Medical marijuana, I have 6 people that spoke about it and they need it, but I have 13 people who wanted referendums. My campaign promise to Enfield was to get the people's voice back to what we want in this town. And I just really strongly think that we need that referendum for this. And I agree with Councilor Ungwar that this was a partial. Here we had a lot of people with emails that sent us there. We got a petition that was signed by 300 and some odd people. That's good. Well, we have 40,000 people in this town. I'm not against it. I just want the people to have their voice back. That was my promise in my campaign. I want to keep my promise. And that's how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote, and I will abstain because that's the conflict I have, because I'm an old pothead from the 70s. So it's either way, I'm good. But I want to keep my campaign promise and let it go to referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Finger. Councilor Despard, then Councilor Hopkins.
Before I make my own remarks, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight and made your voice heard, no matter how you fell on this. I've spent a lot of time looking into this issue, researching whatever numbers I could find. Every step of the way, it's been that more people have been for this than against it, going all the way back to the public hearing back in September. There was a poll online. Obviously, there's problems with an online poll, but I think as a temperature check, it can be important to read. There were 1,500 respondents. 1,200 wanted this repealed, which was like 80%. 240 hadn't made up their mind. So 94% of these people either wanted it or hadn't made up their mind. And then we had today we had a whole lot of emails come in for people that could not make it. I think there was 24 emails in support of rescinding this, and there were 3 in opposition. There was also Gina Sullivan had sent us in a petition that, as of a few minutes ago, was at 395 signatures for people that wanted this. So all that into consideration, I'm going to be supporting this. And as we've, the town attorney made clear, this is something that those of you that are against this and don't want this, you can take up petition and you can make us go to referendum. The power is in your hands, and I fully support that in any way possible. There were just a couple other things I wanted to mention about this that in my research was that there's actually, so in the metadata, like there are some research that can show that legalization increases use. But when you take every study that's been done and you meta-analyze that, it shows that there's no effect. It has no effect. Legalization has had no effect on increased use. And actually there is evidence for cannabis being a supplement, right? So it helps people get off of opiates. It helps people get off of alcohol addiction, which alcohol is the one drug that can kill you from withdrawing from it. And then I just want to say, as a mental health counselor who works with substance abuse and somebody who, I think someone said 99% of us here have probably been touched by addiction in some way, which is true. So as somebody that cares deeply about this, if I felt like this was going to be a detriment in any way, I wouldn't support it. And so that's where I stand. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Despard. Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor Casati. Also, could I request Councilor Ludwig to mute himself? Very good. Thank you. I want to say a few things about this, and specifically some of the legal points. Repealing this ordinance really only creates the possibility that we end up with a cannabis establishment or cannabis cultivator here. We're not approving any sales or a business in particular here tonight. All proposals will have to go through the normal planning and zoning process, as well as any other potential state legal hurdles. This also does not preclude a referendum. And really, we heard from Attorney Talberg, the only way for us to get a referendum on this issue by state law is for 10% of the electorates to submit a petition at least 60 days before the next election or a subsequent election in the time period of that law. I really encourage folks to do that if they are so moved. It's your right, and you should do it if you want to. I did also appreciate Attorney Talberg reading that section. It's out there. It's Section 83A of the Act Concerning Responsible and Equitable Regulation of Adult Use Cannabis. My vote is informed by many conversations with District 4 voters on the campaign trail as well as afterwards. Some are opposed, very opposed. Many are not, and I believe the majority are not, for a variety of reasons, including, as we heard today, pain relief, relief from opioid addiction, personal freedom, and the amount our town will get from the state's 3% tax on each sale, which can be used on roads, among other things. Is cannabis something that can be abused? Yes. But we trust adults with many other things that can be abused. This is a very American thing, and I think something we should support here. But it is about a balance of personal freedom and public safety. I do think that is something that we will absolutely take into account going forward with any regulation in town. In terms of economics, my thinking on this is informed primarily by a study done by the University of Connecticut School of Business called Projecting Economic Impacts of Legalizing Marijuana in Connecticut, which was done in 2020. Some of the main findings, briefly, they project state revenue over the next 6 years to be between $898 to $972 million. Some other measures project over $1 billion in the next 5 years. I think this one's a little more conservative and is probably the best one. In terms of municipal revenue, the average projected by this study is $70 million over the next 5 years, and it increases in 5 years. It's supposed to be $21 million. I really hope that comes to pass, and I think Enfield should reap the benefit of that as long as it's done in a reasonable way here. Not to mention job growth, and I could go on and on about the potential for that. We also should note, as many people have here, that existing laws already prevent some of the things that people talked about. In particular, you cannot drive under the influence of cannabis. That is very important and has not changed. This new law, which was passed, also makes it so that you cannot refuse a test. If a police officer suspects you of being under the influence, you have to consent to a test or you lose your license for a period of time. I think our Enfield police officers are more than qualified to evaluate this and administer the laws as they've been written. So I should also note there are existing laws that criminalize giving marijuana or other drugs to children. That's very important. Just to name a couple, illegal distribution of a controlled substance to a minor, as well as risk of injury, which is very general and would absolutely apply if somebody gave an edible to a child. Not to mention the regulations that parents have to follow regarding abuse and neglect. If your child was able to get into some gummies, and I think it's absolutely the case that there are restrictions and packaging which makes that difficult. If that occurred, you could be, as a parent, you could be subject to abuse neglect proceedings. Very important. It's important that we ensure the safety of children as much as we can here. Lastly, for me, this really comes down to balancing public safety and personal freedom. I do think the majority of people support it because they believe that people in Enfield should be able to choose that. Within reason, adults should be able to choose. Based on the economic research, the medical research, and this legal framework that we have, I feel comfortable voting to repeal the ban. And I welcome a referendum if folks turn out for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other?
Yeah.
Counselor Mangini? Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to make a brief comment. I will be voting in support of repealing the current ordinance. As my colleagues have spoke before me, this is not about children. This is about business. And it's important that we hear from the public, we hear from businesses, this opportunity could bring in some good revenue to Enfield. But aside from that, and I think Nick said this very nicely, as he always does, it's people's choice whether they want to go forward and use marijuana, cannabis. I graduated in the 70s, and believe it or not, I never smoked, I never ate, I never did any of that stuff. But it's not my right to tell another adult what they can and cannot do. And for this particular opportunity, I think it's imperative that we have an open mind and that we try and welcome business that could potentially come in and bring us some revenue. And for us to not impose upon other adults' livelihoods, I think is important as well. And to me, that's listening to the people's voices. Many of you have come out and spoke, and like my colleagues have said, many have sent emails and phone calls and, petitioned us to, repeal this. And again, it goes both ways. You have people for and you have people against. But I myself believe that it's very important to listen to those that want the opportunity to make a decision for themselves. So I'm going to be supporting the repeal of this current ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ludwig, any comment?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Despard.
4.
Councilor Finger.
Abstain.
Councilor Hopkins.
4.
Councilor Ludwig.
Against.
Councilor Mangini.
4.
Councilor Pisner.
Against.
Councilor Santinella.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
That's 6 in favor, 3 against, and 1 abstention.
Resolution passes. Item H, discussion resolution appointing acting town manager. Be it resolved in accordance with the Charter, Chapter 4, Section 2, the Enfield Town Council does hereby appoint Alaric Fox as acting town manager for a period up to 90 days effective December 6, 2021, prepared by the town manager's office. Date prepared December 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Sakala, seconded by
Thank you.
Councilor Mangini.
Thank you. Second.
Is any discussions? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Councilor Despard.
4.
Councilor Finger.
Sorry, yes.
Councilor Hopkins.
4.
Councilor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Mangini.
4.
Councilor Pisner.
4.
Councilor Santinella.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4, and thank you.
It's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
Okay. Item I, discussion resolution regarding the appointment of town attorney. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby appoint James Tallberg as the town attorney for the town of Enfield effective January 1st, 2022 for a term which expires December 31st, 2023. May it further resolve that the Enfield Town Council does hereby authorize Mayor Bob Crisati to sign the employment agreement with James Tallberg as town attorney for the town of Enfield, date prepared December 1st, 2021, prepared by the town manager's office.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini, Deputy Mayor Sakala. Any discussions? Yes, Councilor Mangini.
I do want to say thank you to our attorney, James Tallberg. You always have shown not only professionalism, but you've never leaned one way or another. You've always provided your legal opinion in the utmost professional fashion and delivered the truth and nothing but the truth. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate those kind words. Thank you, Counselor.
Any other comments? Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Despard.
4.
Counselor Finger.
With pleasure. 4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you all. I sincerely appreciate the vote of confidence. And for those of you who don't know me, I have represented the town of Enfield in one capacity or another since around 1998, when, you might not believe it, I had dark hair. And this is what the job will do to you over time, over decades. But very pleased to stay on for another 2 years. So thank you all. I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Attorney Talbert. Item J, discussion resolution, Town of Enfield versus Connecticut Water Company. The resolution to withdraw the town's declaratory judgment action and waive appeal of pure final decisions regarding the fire protection charges. Whereas on or about July 9th, 2020, the Town of Enfield filed an action entitled Town of Enfield versus Connecticut Water Company, docket number HHD CV 20-61330-874-S, seeking a declaratory judgment regarding whether the town or the 5 independent fire districts located within the town should be responsible for payment of fire protection charges. And whereas in December 2020, the Connecticut Water Company filed an application with the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA, docket number 20-12-30, which resulted in, inter alia, a rule change that would prohibit fire protection charges for being billed to a fire district unless the water company provides its consent to the billing arrangement. And whereas the town council would prefer to seek an amicable resolution of these issues with the fire districts outside the judicial process. Therefore, be resolved that the town council does hereby authorize Town Attorney James N. Tallberg or his designee to file a withdrawal of the DJ action and to waive the town's right of appeal regarding the final decision in the PURA proceeding, prepared by the Office to the Town Attorney, date prepared December 2nd, 2021.
So moved.
Councilor Mangini. Second by Councilor Santinella. Any discussion or questions? Sensing none. Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Despard.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
Against.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
That's 9 in favor, 1 against, and no abstentions.
Item K, discussion resolution to sign settlement participation form. Whereas there are presently over 2,000 pending opioid-related lawsuits pending throughout the United States, and whereas these cases have been assigned to the Federal District Court for Northern District of Ohio, and whereas the town of Enfield, represented by the law firm of Scott & Scott, is a plaintiff in one such lawsuit, and whereas a national settlement known as a distributor settlement has been proposed, and whereas Scott & Scott has recommended that the town opt in to the distributor settlement and sign the settlement participation form. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby authorize the acting town manager, Alaric Fox, to sign the settlement participation form on behalf of the town of Enfield, prepared by the Office of the Town Attorney, date prepared December 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Counselor Mangini. Second, Counselor Despard. Any discussions?
If I may, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, sure. So just for the benefit of the public, really, just the Reader's Digest version of this is as follows. Enfield is one of many, if not all, municipalities in Connecticut that signed up to file a class action lawsuit against multiple distributors and drug companies with regard to the opioid crisis. Following, and we were just one of 2,000 municipalities, state and local governments around the United States. Eventually, all 50 states' attorney general filed their own class action. And recently, there was a $5 billion settlement nationwide. So in our system of government, you have the federal government, you have the states, and you have the local governments. Because we're at the bottom of the food chain as the local governments, the state attorneys general basically took over the settlement of these lawsuits that were consolidated in the Northern District of Ohio, I believe. So the way it will work is that because it's a class action lawsuit, the money will be split up and divided according to allocations that have not yet been completely defined, but basically just a snapshot goes something like this. In Connecticut, the share for the state will be 338. Actually, bear with me. Of the 26 billion, Connecticut will get between 1 and 1.5% of the total. That's about 338 million and 390 million, rough figures. Of that lump sum, the state will take 70%, municipalities will receive 15%, the attorneys will take 15%. It will be paid over many years. By the time you break it down to the town of Enfield, we are in line for less than 1% of the total in Connecticut. That will be paid over time. It's going to be roughly between $11,000 a year for 9 years as to Johnson & Johnson and $24,000 over 18 years as to the distributors of the opioids. So it's money from above. It's going to be paid over time. It's not nothing, but it's also not going to, it's not going to alter our budget. So all we're doing here tonight is passing a resolution to authorize the town manager to sign this participation agreement. It'll then wind its way through the process, and eventually Enfield will see some money, a little bit, paid over time.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Ludwig?
Jim, you're going to ask some questions. When do we expect the settlement and for any payment? Do we have a timeline?
Hurry up and wait. With the mic on, hurry up and wait. It's going to be a while.
So I understand it's not a lot of money, but I mean, at the time we did this, even if we get $1, we were going to put it into make sure the money went to combat, to fight drug abuse. Just want to make sure that this money just doesn't flow into the general fund, and that we set up, a specific, again, I don't care if it's 11,000 or whatever, that this money goes to why we joined that lawsuit.
I believe the money will have strings attached to it, that it's most likely going to have to go toward drug abuse prevention.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay, thank you. Item 16. Excuse me. Sheila, roll call.
Mayor Casati.
4.
Counselor Despard.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Okay, next, public communications. Anyone wish to address the council at this time? Is there anybody who would like to address the council at this time? Public communications are closed. Counselor communications, any final comments from anybody? I think we're ready to
Motion to adjourn?
entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Counselor Despard, a second by Counselor Pisner. All in favor? Aye.
No, I want to stay.
Thank you, everyone, and good night. Have a nice night. Bye.